Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hotline League pre-show. If you're listening to this on a podcast or if you are watching it on YouTube or whatever, here's what we've decided to do. And we're going to spend about 25 minutes, maybe 30, maybe a little less, talking about the import rule stuff because we have been talking about it nonstop for the past couple of episodes, and obviously it's all been all over my channel. So what I don't want is for it to once again consume the conversation for the rest of the show whenever we could be talking about any number of different things like the MSI announcement and all that stuff. So Mark and I decided to dedicate a special part of the show, this pre-show, and just make kind of a longer block here of content for all of you so that we could take time to talk about this. Raz should be joining us. I know he wanted to come on, but he's gone. So perhaps there was miscommunication. I don't know if he realized that, like, when I said 30-minute pre-show, that I meant that it would start before the show.
Yeah, he probably meant like spend 30 minutes before the callers.
Right, exactly. So anyway, if you are listening to this or you don't want it, you're done with the import rule conversation, don't worry. We're going to give you the same amount of content you would normally get without it. Just go ahead and skip ahead. There should be a timestamp there, and if not, seek along on this. But again, we're hoping it should be like 22 minutes, give or take a couple minutes. Maybe it'll go a little bit long, but hopefully you can manage it, and this is how we'll manage it. And then we'll also have Guilhoto, who's the Immortals coach and has coached in Europe and stuff. So anyway, this pre-show is brought to you by Alienware and GameFuel. We didn't sell it to them. They actually just sponsor Hotline League, but we're giving it to them anyway because we did not.
You're so generous, Travis. So I was me. I'd be stingy. I'd be emailing them right now.
We'd be looking for another. We're looking for another sponsor for the pre-show to Hotline League.
Give me another pack of, give me another case of GameFuel, or I'm not mentioning.
I mean, they give us unlimited GameFuel. You can have as much as you can drink, Mark.
Give me, I don't know, another shirt.
So let's talk about this. So Mark, you and I were both discussing. Should we just talk exclusively about Andy's letter for right now?
I mean, I think that's the big, like, quote unquote development, and then, like, some of the conversations in the Reddit thread. But
yeah,
for me, I think that's the big talking point is Reggie's letter and all that.
Yeah. So I wish that there was like it's on medium. I wonder if I can do like a dark mode for it. Because otherwise I have to blast everyone's corneas with it.
You can invert your color scheme on your computer.
I don't know if that will. I think they can all invert their color schemes. I don't know if that works for us.
I don't know. Yeah,
there's
Raz.
Display
setting.
Okay.
You're right.
Hang on. Raz is messaging me. Show started on my way. Okay.
Well, I guess we can start, and then we can. I mean, we'll try not to repeat, but
sure.
I don't want to.
Okay.
So, did you want to start? Should I start? What do you want to do?
You should start.
Okay. So, I mean, it's a pretty lengthy, article. I mean, not like it's a fucking.
If you somehow missed it, by the way, Reginald from TSM put out, first, he apologized to Vulcan. Mm-hmm. Secondly, he posted a thing that says my thoughts on the LCS, and it's long. Oh, and I will say this. I was thinking about making its own video, but I kind of felt like it was like, I don't know, continuing the drama to turn it into like, I didn't want to veer into like TMZ. But there was some speculation on the last Hotline League that Andy could have gotten fined for what he did with Vulcan. And I guess I can say now that I've reached out to Riot, who confirmed that he did get fined $5,000 for conduct unbecoming. So, yeah, that's the news there. But anyway, should we talk about this? Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. So I won't go over everything in the article because like I said, it's lengthy, and so it'll be, I think, for me at least, more talking about my thoughts on the article. And I typed out 13, and I don't know if we're gonna go through all of them. It's just like I'm someone who, like, when I'm thinking about things, I like to write them down, so they're at least out of my head once. But I think the first note that I have about this is that the post is largely a list of things that are currently wrong with the LCS, and it's a good jumping off point, to start with common ground. Hey, here are the issues, kind of thing. And I'll give Reggie credit that this is more than most owners have done so far, at least. So, like, on that front, like, this is all a good starting point. I think where it becomes a little bit of an issue for me, though, is that we're getting Raz in here. I'll stop down for a sec.
No, you can keep going.
Okay, well, while Raz gets in here, I think one of my issues with it is that for any fan who is, more active in the community, they've probably heard these points every year for like the past 3 years. Every single year after Worlds, there's these exact reasons discussed on talk shows, on Twitter. People say these things. Like, these are just the things that North America struggles with. Some of it's potentially our fault. Some of it's not potentially our fault. And so, in a sense, the bulk of this article are things that are largely not even related to the import rule necessarily. And I think what's missing for me is tying in what changing the import rule will do for some of these. Like, we talk about population size. I can kind of see that one. It's just about like, oh, there'll be more talent. But like, it talks about ping. We talk about talent development. We talk about these kinds of other things in there. And I don't think it necessarily ties in like specifically what these things are going to do.
Yeah. Raz, welcome to the pre-show. Wait, we can't hear you. You're muted on Discord. Unmute on Discord.
Is he even on Discord?
He is. He's on the channel.
Oh my goodness. Thank you.
Yeah.
My bad. You do pre-shows for these things now?
We are doing it for this one.
This is new.
This is only for this episode because we wanted to segregate off the import drama from the rest of the show. Yeah.
Very fair. Thanks for inviting me to the show, Travis.
Yeah. So what was your take on the Andy letter? I know we can kind of dive into these specific topics at some point in time, but like, what did you think of it overall, Raz? Before I know you have a big rant you want to unleash, so maybe we.
Yeah, the rant is gonna come. Do you want me to just go for the rant?
So this is funny because I think I have like 13 points and I can like go through them and maybe I'll hit some of your like.
Go for it.
Let's do that. Go ahead, Mark.
Mine are semi-organized in a way that makes sense in my head. So my first one is largely just saying like, hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate laying out the ground rules, but I think this article is lacking tying in why these problems are going to be fixed by the import rule. My second issue with it a little bit is that there is some misinformation, and I hesitate to say misinformation. I'm not quite sure the right term for it, but he claims that half the teams are no longer willing to spend to really compete, and lists the team like Golden Guardians and some of these others as evidence for like why the import rule needs to go. But he doesn't acknowledge the fact that that's largely due to COVID. That this is COVID decreased spending from economic pressure on the investors. That, as I understand it,
he didn't. He must not have watched Hunter's video for Golden Guardians where Hunter was like, we were ready to go. Apparently they were ready. The story that I think Hunter said in that was that they found out they had gotten the ability to sign all the players they wanted. People had agreed to terms. And then as they were ready to sign the documents, Golden State Warriors were essentially like, yeah, we can't do this. So they were ready to spend. It wasn't because of that. It's because NBA is suffering from COVID stuff.
Right. And so that's one of my issues with it is like, that's a bit of a, twisting facts to kind of suit the idea that like, oh, teams don't believe that NA can compete anymore, so they're not willing to spend. It's like, well, they literally can't spend this year.
Not to mention, by the way, do we want, like, I don't think we need 10 teams that are all spending $5 million to try to get to Worlds, right? Like, there's development and all that stuff, so.
That's going to be a huge thing throughout this document, is that there's a lot of emphasis put on money equating quality. Which I think is a big fallacy, and we'll get into that when it comes to developing the NA scene. But that's a little bit further down my list. Sure. Third thing, in terms of not addressing concerns, like I think one of the things that the owners are really, really missing is that they're not actually talking about the talking points that the community is talking about, like fan engagement and viewership and what people are going to care about. We've done some polls, Travis, and obviously our show is not like the fucking, I don't know.
Right. But we have at least some
data,
which we haven't seen presented from Riot or anybody.
Right. And from what we see, the majority, and for us it's up to 70%, but I bet that's partially our audience, but 70% of fans do not want this rule removed. And a lot of people are saying that they are concerned that they would lose interest in the league. And that's just not even addressed. And in the post, Reggie talks a little bit about fans being worried, and he says, oh, well, but fans clearly like people like Bjergs and Jensen and Svenskeren and stuff like that. But again, that sounds out of touch with the community, because the entire community that I've seen is pro path to residence, permanent residence. No one wants the import rule to become no imports at all. They're fine with path to pro residence, but They want the time built in to connect and build an affinity with those players and not have to worry about 5 new players coming in at once and just becoming a team. And then if that does happen and they are successful, most fans feel like that would not be a representative of our region winning. Zales said as much on the podcast of the dive, and like that's a point that I feel like was totally glossed over, was this concern, because it sounds like he was arguing that like fans, don't want permanent residence when most fans actually push for permanent residence. They just want there to be a path for it and not just, open the gates up for being able to sign 5 imports.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely not going to touch on the topics that are like the main concerns being upvoted on Reddit or like pushed by people on like socials, just because those are unpopular decisions or like conversations. Like for them, if they were to expand on their reasoning behind it, like people won't like it. So it's like smart from their end to just avoid it altogether if they want to push their point.
Yeah.
So this is probably. Have you gone through all? What number are we on now, Mark?
We're on 3, bro.
Oh God. Okay.
I'll go a little bit
faster.
faster.
Speed it up a little bit faster.
Right,
I mean, I told Andre.
This is gonna be
I told Andre we'd be a little late, so I think it's okay. But yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't. So when Rich is talking about how he thinks that NA has actually done a fine job of scouting and development, that's a point that he says it thinks it's fine. And to justify that, he said that they've spent roughly $1 million on their academy team and their amateur teams and stuff like this, which just feels kind of misjudging what people are saying about the scene. So here's a couple things I know. When Academy started, a number of teams, including TSM and others, who I talked to people who were staff there, thought Academy was a waste of time. They didn't want to invest in it right when it started. Teams didn't think it was going to be worthwhile, and no one wanted to seriously invest in it. Multiple GMs in the last year I've talked to have told me how atrocious Academy scrim and culture can be, and how games just get slipped through. People aren't taking it seriously. You don't get equal effort put into the Academy system. Yeah,
Revenge talked about it, I think, on one of the shows that I think either Dom or Ellis or maybe both of them do last week. I forget which one he was on. Crackdown, maybe? Yeah.
Players in the Academy and amateur scene have said that they do not feel well supported. This is something that they've talked about, that they feel passed over by LCS teams pretty frequently. And so when you ask staff, GMs, players, and everyone seems to be saying, at least on some level, that the system is not working that well right now, to then imply that because money has been spent on it, that it must be working well is such a, I don't know, it just seems like it's totally missing the mark to me.
Yeah, no, and Revenge, in an interview with me last week, also talked about how atrocious scouting is for so many of the teams in the LCS. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that elsewhere as well since then. And so, yeah, to your point again, like, we aren't great at this. Wait, Raz, I think this was something you wanted to talk about.
I mean, there's a whole thing, but on the scouting department, like, yeah, I mean, teams are just not even. One of the big selling points of franchising is the willingness to take a risk. But then we're still finding that our scouting is more reliant on experience from abroad. So if there's a difference between getting a well-experienced player that's not an NA versus a player that you think has like real potential, we're still making the same decisions that we made before franchising existed. Like that's one thing that I wanted to put out there. I think this year was different. But yeah, I'll hold.
And that's part of it too. It's just like, it's wild to like, a lot of the arguments that Andy puts in this, I think, are related to like this year or even just like last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
This goes directly in my rant. Can I just go for it?
Yeah, fire away now.
Okay. So misdirection was a big thing for me when it came to this letter, because it's almost as if I came with an argument to you and said, hey, you know what? Our society should be basically run by a dictator who's just like, he will make all of our decisions instead of democracy. And you'll be like, that's an awful decision. And then I come out with a letter saying all of the things that are wrong with our current system. It's like, okay, this is all agreeable to us. But then where's your defense for the point that you had just made? Like, where is the full defense for like that? It's such a leap. And so like, I felt like the community took that bait and started rehashing the same discussions about ping and about like population size. And when the real thickness of the discussion for me that he put in there, of course, which was the fact that I heavily disagree with, North America putting in as much investment in any other region in amateur, in their amateur talent. Is anyone going to agree with that, by the way? Like, I'll start with, I think this year has been a big pushing point for amateur like involvement from our LCS teams. Obviously, each team has like a different mentality, and we can go into every discussion. I'll start with TSM. Does TSM have an amateur team? Oh, no. 6 or a few days before the letter, they made a push that they will have like their combine for an amateur team. Okay, so like they don't have one. Did they ever have an amateur team?
They've done scouting previously. I will point out.
In 2019, they had a juniors team with 3 players. They made a post that they would be hunting for, like they would be getting, a full team. They'd be performing in amateur events. That didn't happen. I will say though that they still benefited from having that, right? Even without having an actual team, they benefited. Like 2 of the players that were on this junior team, by the way, was Johnson and blanking on the other one, but that one was important too. Oh, so Sword, like the one who's Sword's on their academy team. Johnson's in the LCS. With that little bit of investment, they actually got something out of it. Academy, you're right, Mark. Like owners got forced into an academy system. Like a lot of these major teams didn't even want to put investment in it. Spica right now is in the conversation of like one of the best junglers in the league. And like that's a benefit of that system. Treats is now doing really well in the LEC. That is the benefit of the system. And they didn't put even an iota. If we're comparing their investment into it in comparison to like, let's say LPL, like where WE or like poorer organizations, by the way, poorer than TSM. Like WE is not as large an organization. They have, of course, an LDL team. But like throughout the years, they've had like trainee teams, sister teams that are underneath them, and they have players that would bounce between. And like if they didn't work for those players, then they would of course sell them. But if it did work for those players, they would move them up into their LPL team and give them a tryout. A lot of our LPL organizations do this. OMG does this. Like there are a lot of orgs that put in that time and investment because they see value out of trying out those players. And so like that's me starting with LPL. That's the same thing that's in the LC in Korea. Europe is literally right. It feels like every year they're putting in talent coming in from EU Masters, and I know this is a different system altogether because they can pull in players from other competitive regions in their ERLs. But then, like, really, this is only a thing that's starting this year, if not like kind of like last year for these teams. And then he's like, "Oh, we've tried." So that's my defense for we have to now look for imports. At least wait. See like what this actually gets for you. You can improve upon the system. And every step in which they are faced with getting an amateur team or like actually pushing and investing in the scene itself, there's been pushback. And so for me, it's literally a statement. I know this won't be a discussion like this will be a one and done letter, and it's not going to be a popular subject for him to hit on, or like a lot of the owners with the same mindset. Mm-hmm. But like it's absurd, it's stupid, and I don't want people to take that bait of like the majority of that article where everyone's like, yeah, you know what, I agree with that. Ping and population, yes, Reggie, and then like leave with this conversation until next year where we start it all again. So that was my biggest issue with that letter. And I do not want people to run away thinking that North America has actually done as much as other regions on this.
Big agree, 100%. I think there's a lot of things that fans are still eager to hear from. And so, like, for example, many fans think that, you won't be able to pull top talent and that, you're going to get teams that are not down one. You're going to get worse teams, and you're going to be getting quote unquote B tier players
or washed players, right?
Not even washed, just like, like Seraph and Ninja and like players that I don't think were in the peak of their careers when they came over necessarily, but like it wasn't Chovy, it wasn't these people who are dominating the Korean scene. And then there's another argument that fans make that even if you do get down one, all the other problems that you outlined in this post still exist. The North American solo queue is not great, even separate of ping. Then when you factor in ping, it's an issue. Then we talk about like, what about actual coaching and development and these kinds of things? Still not great. So like, even if you got Dom1 and you let him play for a year, they wouldn't still be Dom1 that's going to beat LPL, most people would argue. And that was Vulcan's entire tweet. Also, people are concerned about the historical parallel to StarCraft 2 when they opened up the import rules for WCS. And I'm not an expert in this. Azale has a great point about it in the dive. But again, unaddressed. There's so many points that the community has that are just not addressed. Many worry that the opening up the amount of imports that people can have will crush NA talent further by giving them less opportunities, and in the long term hurt the player base because they don't see as many opportunities. They're not going to try as hard potentially. People will just go play a different game. They'll play Heroes of the Storm or something, like unaddressed.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I think the mentality, it goes back to the scouting point, is that people want experience and want like guarantees right now. When I'm searching for a player on my LCS team or on my academy not so much, but my LCS team, they want results. And so that's where it comes into an issue, because even though right now we should view the system we have to allow for long-term investment in our players, that is not the case, I would say, except for this year. And that's why I want to support the teams that are doing it this year. Like Evil Geniuses, 100 Thieves are like the first team that are really pushing for the 100 Thieves next. And it's not even as if you're you're stepping back from being a competitive team on your main team. Your LCS team can be really fucking stacked, but then you're still investing in your academy team, your amateur team. And even if you don't necessarily want to have like an amateur team, like Golden Guardians are a team that's still really, focused on development because they literally have collegiate players on their LCS team. Like that's, for me, every team has their own thing, and I'm fine with that. It makes sense for me. But I do not like the idea, and that's why I'm focusing on Reggie, because he literally made the letter of saying, "Oh yeah, we've tried. Yeah, the boat has sailed. This is over. We need experienced players now." So stupid.
Yeah, and I mean, so real quick, someone in Twitch chat says, did we even read Reggie's post? He says it's not a one-fix-all solution. There's many factors. Right, but the thing is, he didn't actually he didn't, one, address any of the concerns that the community has raised, like all the things I just said went unaddressed. And two, he didn't actually tie in why opening up, getting experienced players right now would make you win. Like, what about the ping problem?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I took issue with too, is like, first off, I promise you, all of us read it, and I think probably cared more and took a lot more, consideration into it than a lot of the people that probably did just skip it, because this is our goddamn careers, people. But I think what is fascinating to me, and I know Mark and Raz, you kind of hit on this too. It's like, okay, so you say, like, he specifically mentions muscle memory in there, like, oh, our ping is so high. I know as a former professional gamer that like your muscle memory, people will learn to play completely different, et cetera, et cetera. Talks a lot about how solo queue is bad, et cetera, et cetera. So again, my question is, if it's not show me how this fixes all of it. Because if we're bringing in these players who will come in with like good muscle memory, having all this great experience, and then we bring them to North America where we put them in a shit situation with bad ping and bad solo queue, what are we flipping these players? It's like, bring them in. They'll stick around. They'll be good for like 1 or 2 years. Then they degrade. Yeah. Then we get them out. We bring in more imports, because you're going to constantly be bringing them into a flawed system where they're not going to ever improve. They're going to get worse based on the information he's presenting in this article.
Yeah, and honestly, like going back to like Mark pulling the question from Twitch chat, like if the person actually has like a specific thing that they're complaining about, then please talk about the specifics, because you're looking bad right now. And like, on Travis, I mean, like, that comes back to we won't have an idea what the owners are actually advocating for, right? When it comes to like, what is their solution? Is our solution to move the server? And of course, like, I don't think that should be the solution either. Is the solution that we're pushing for is like move to Chicago, or like go to Chirac? You know what I mean? Go to Chicago, like move the professional players. Then okay, like that's an idea, and it shows to me that they're willing to push for that. But that's not the push. Like that honestly, like, I'm not hearing that as the public push from the owners. So they don't want that solution, is what I'm like, or at least if they want the solution, then they don't want it hard enough. Like for me, it's like, what are they actually pushing for? And you're right, I agree with you. If they put in players who are really talented from one region, you're 60 ping environment, baby.
And plus, like, you know, talking about this potential solutions, like sharding is one that I've seen talked about, and it's one that I think Riot might have addressed it once, but I honestly don't remember about why they can't do sharding, which is basically when the queue gets made between the 10 players who are going to end up in the same game, it figures out where the closest server is. And so you set up a West Coast server, and like the games can be hosted on there. Maybe
I've asked for an interview with them about
sharding.
it. I've asked for an interview with them about it, and they declined. So I don't know if they've ever said it publicly. If they have, I'd love to see it. Because even when I asked for the interview, I wasn't directed to any like document public word on why they couldn't do this. So we've got. Sorry,
I got two more.
Okay,
we got through
fine.
a lot of them. A lot of them were
No,
just
it's good. It's good. We've got
points.
extra time. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't know what number we were on.
Yeah, a lot of them were those unaddressed like fan concerns about viewership and killing, you know, like fan interest in this kind of stuff, which was largely glossed over. There's a couple other real quick ones, which is like they talked about wanting to scout other regions. You know, like, oh, we believe talent is like borderless, or I forget exactly
Universal,
whatever the terminology was. But like, I would be really curious, like, why you think that you're going to be able to find good talent off other ecosystems when it seems like we can't even really do it that consistently in our own, and we don't have any networks placed down right now in them. I think the Korean one would probably be pretty easy to set up because there's a fair amount of Korean players in North America who could then help connect you with high layer solo queue players. But like, how are you going to get Chinese players who could potentially be interested? You know, do you have any contacts in the LDL right now that you're going to tap once this rule gets lifted, or is this like there's no game plan. There was no explanation of like, yeah, we believe that we can do this kind of thing. There's also the argument being made by other owners around the world that went unaddressed. Carlos and other EU owners have said that this will harm their leagues, them in EU and Korea in particular. This is just another point that just doesn't get talked about. But yet we're talking like this is going to help the whole global infrastructure of the scene when it seems like it's going to drain talent out of some regions. And then the 13th and final point is that TSM and C9 have previously said, hey, we're a global org, and we want to be able to reach our global fans or be able to, you know, get players from around the world. And then sometimes they reference like other teams that they have, like their Rainbow Six team or something is Brazilian or whatever the hell. I'm not sure exactly what all their other teams are, but I don't see how that has any logical connective tissue to like LoL being a specifically region-locked ecosystem that uses regional rivalries to push forward its international events. Like, that's a very specific business model that this would destroy. And so I can't tell, are you arguing that you think this is a bad system? Do you want a super league? Like, what do you want if you think that this is, because it's going to be gone in a lot of people's minds. So what the fans are saying is that it won't feel like regional rivalries anymore. And so I'm curious, like, do they think that, as well as the fact that I don't understand why TSM thinks that international fans are somehow being gatekept from supporting TSM currently. Like, if you're a Korean fan who likes TSM right now, you can still buy their merch, you can still cheer for them, you can still watch their games the same way that I, as a fan of Gen.G and Ruler, can go and watch Ruler's content. I can watch Gen.G videos, and I can still be a fan. I don't see how removing the import rule opens up fandom anymore when you can be a fan of any team anywhere at any point in the world, anytime already.
So I want to just talk about a couple things that I think you can see if you read between the lines on this. And then a couple things also that I think are outside of this. Because I think Mark does a great job of pointing out some stuff. Raj did that isn't addressed. Raz did a great job of pointing out some stuff that like perhaps seems misleading or at least, I don't know, convoluted. Some of the things in here that I found interesting are things that people haven't really picked up on it. So one of the things he makes is a bold point. He doesn't bold too much in this, and I've never posted Medium before, so I don't know if somebody else was quoting this, but I think he's making it bold. It's not like a Medium thing. In it, he writes, CLG versus TSM used to peak at 600K concurrence. Where is it now? If the LCS teams can't perform internationally, I believe that fans will lose interest over time. Teams will give up, blah, blah, blah. And then somewhere else in here, he says, let me see if I can have it because I like wrote it down separately. Because he talks a lot about money and business. Teams are currently investing at a major loss because we believe in Riot and we want to make our mark on the global stage and prove. It's right before that sentence. Prove that the LCS is still a Premier League for our fans. It's actually right before he says the 600K. So implied in this is this basically this statement of we're investing in a major loss. We used to have a ton of viewers. Viewers are going to stop going. It literally draws this main point here, which is the owners think that or at least Andy does, that the biggest reason for the LCS dropping in viewership is our world's performance. And I just don't know if that's true. Again, there's no, like, this is part of the problem. There's no data that says this. I think you sometimes see people go out and tweet and Reddit and say like, we lost at Worlds or TSM 06 or whatever. Like, I'm going to stop watching. But I don't know if that's actually why. Could League be dropping in viewership? I mean, in fandom, like, we know that a lot of people stopped playing League for a while, I think during the Fortnite days, and I think they've resurged again in North America. But like, did we lose a lot of people that didn't come back during that time because they stopped playing League? Did we, I don't know, is the broadcast, like, we've all complained about the broadcast. Mark less because he's on it. Like, is there a chance that like a poor broadcast experience is part of it, right? There's all these different things. Maybe our interviewers that do third-party media content suck. There's all sorts of reasons why viewership could be going down. And to just sort of throw it out there like this is the reason why is really concerning to me, because you actually might be going in the opposite direction. Maybe it's a thing where people don't feel like we have too much stuff. Raz, you want to say something?
He's got his hand up.
Yeah, first of all, I would agree with Travis on the discussion about third-party media. Yeah. Travis Gafford. But mostly on the topic of, like, are we talking long-term engagement? Are we talking about the fact that it's like short-term, where in COVID time, LEC has been putting their broadcasts like in studio, so they've really had like a studio engagement. That one's been a lot easier for viewers. Also, like, I do agree, like, I would imagine a portion of the viewership comes down to the fact that like no internationals would be like daunting for viewers, or like unmoving for viewers. And another thing as well, like, North America has been online for a long time. Like, our entire broadcast is online. Like, we don't have the like.
Yeah, but we dipped pretty hard from 600K viewers before we went online.
I mean, so there's a lot of reasons it could. I mean, you tweeted the video of a streamer talking about why he stopped watching LCS, and he said that like the player turnover was too high.
I told him to call in. Yes.
All right, so maybe we'll get a call from him. But at the very least, it shows that there are other reasons beyond international performance, and it's not that it doesn't matter. I'm sure a lot of fans are like, man, we just suck. I don't want to watch. I'm sure there's a portion of that, but the big question is, what portion is that? And are you going to gain more viewers? And two, like, if you lift the import rule, and two, are you even going to win? Which is the other big part of that equation. You actually still need to win then. Otherwise, if you're still the fourth best major region, it's still not going to feel that great. And so, like, why is it dropping is a big question. I mean, NA has never been competitive internationally, if we're being honest. We've had good runs. I mean, like, 2018 Worlds, 2019 MSI, 2016 MSI. I guess you could argue 2014 Worlds potentially. Like, we've had good moments. But, we've never won a semifinals.
Here, so to kind of go back to what you were saying, Mark, we did this episode of Run It. Tim and I did. That was about player turnover. I'm going to see if I can play it without audio coming up. Looks like I can. Okay, so this is just a clip, like a little mock edit on it. There's a world where if you think that there's a good chance that people are stopping to watch because their favorite players are retiring or there's so much turnover, like, if you look at this chart that I'm playing right now on screen, it's a clip from Run It, you'll see just how crazy the turnover has been. And so my concern is that the owners might be completely wrong on this topic. It could be that roster instability and so many teams going in and out and big players retiring is part of the reason. And if we go even further and start replacing these players even more and create even more instability and turnover in the league, like, you'll actually be, if your intent is to bring viewership up, there's a chance that what you'll actually do is bring viewership down, because you'll decrease retention even more. Thank you. You'll decrease retention even more. And so that's like a huge part of it. So later on, I'm going to spin this off into a separate topic on Hotline League. We've got somebody calling in. I put the clip on that Twitter that Mark referenced. But I think this is a huge part of the reason why viewership is going down.
Yeah, I think one thing that a lot of the most popular players in the league back in the day, they streamed a lot. And maybe that's still happening. I mean, I admit I'm not as in touch with the Twitch scene as I was, but like Skara, Sneaky, Meteos, Double Lift, Bjergsen, everyone, all of TSM streamed a ton. Like there was an insane amount of streamers, and so like people grew connected through that. I think some of it, like you said, is it's remote. You don't get to see the fun interactions between players that used to exist. But yeah, there's no franchise like rivalries anymore between players because they've played with half the other players in the league already.
So one of the things he also mentions on here that's kind of a riff off of this is like he says, second, our fans have been incredibly accepting of players such as Bjergsen, Santorin, Jensen, Impact, CoreJJ, Perks, Svenskar, and Lustboy. So true, but here's the thing. Would Bjergsen be as famous and as popular as he was if he was not dropped into a roster that consisted of Dyrus, an Odd One, I think was who was there, Wild Turtle, and Xpecial. Like 4 players that had been on this roster who were North American and had like gone and won a whole bunch of stuff, had done all this content around themselves, etc. I do not think that Bjergsen would be as famous and accepted by American fans, North American fans, if he was part of like 5 European players coming over that year.
Well, and I mean, it's survivorship bias. You're taking the players who did continue to do well in North America and fans did become, have grown affinity to over time. You can't just take them now and say, look, fans love them. Look at all the examples that fail. I mentioned like Ninja, like a lot of the TDK players. You look at some of the Coast guys who came over. Like, is there people who are like, yeah, I'm paler and like stuff like that? Like what about those players who came over, played North America for 2 or 3 splits, and then dipped out? Like, was that better for the scene long term than, people who are native to the scene? I don't know, but at the very least, like you can't just pick the players who fans did appreciate because they did well and they played here for 4 years, and then say like, look, it's like, and as I said, fans actually like that. Fans, as far as I can tell, are for path to permanent residence. They like that, that people do become kind of the North American, like Impact to a lot of people is a North American. He's played here longer than Korea at this point.
On the other hand, you had Crepo, who came over for a very short time. Now he's in my like Twitch chat. He's been talking for the past 15 minutes. No one's even like paying attention to it.
Oh my God, you're gonna flame him like that?
I'm just kidding. But no, some people are like, oh, of course he would, because like he won a ton and that's like a huge thing. But like, guys, that's not people forget that back in that day, Bjergsen came over and was immediately incredibly popular, in part because he was dragged and dropped into this really well-known team of 4 people. It's the offline TV effect. Broden Plett, my creative director, now has over 75,000 Twitter followers because he just does like video work now with offline TV. He's going to become more famous than me. Not to say that I'm very famous. And I'm incredibly envious and upset about it, and it's all because of the network effect of him being a part of this,
Same with me. I mean, I was like, I think like 30, 40K, and then I worked with them for a year and a half, and I shot up to like 80, and I'm like getting close to 100K now, but it's like, it takes much longer.
Yeah. Call me Broden.
Broden, put us in an offline TV video for no fucking reason, bro.
Let me know. But yeah, I think you guys are hitting, of course, on the popularity factor and like the viewership factor. For me, like I would agree on the sense of success being a large impact in viewership. I think the idea, like just as a conclusion to my overall point, they haven't even made it like a large enough effort. Like before 2019. It just didn't exist. Like I would just outright say it. Other than teams dragging their feet on Academy, so it's insane to believe it. There are already so many like young NA talent, or just like young talent in general in the LCS, and that's all we really wanted. Like the first step was just to have young talent in the LCS to challenge really the old veterans, and I know that's obviously going to push popularity down, like viewership down, if you just lose those kind of like type of veterans like a Sneaky to a younger AD carry that has like a higher ceiling. That would be the idea. But you move your you move your org and you move the region forward, so you can actually have a stronger or a different international showing. Like if you just ship the same team again world, you're going to probably get the same experience. If you ship, of course, if you work, while of course having a competitive roster, like a strong roster, whatever that may be, have a strong academy. And I mean, when I say academy lineup, I also mean the coaching staff. So I really got to give a lot of credit to 100 Thieves and Cloud9 for exactly that. I think they're doing a great work with that. So then you can have a strong academy system, a strong amateur system, and it's a long-term development. So you get to the point where you're picking up a player, not having to, and this, maybe in the back of their mind, spend millions abroad for that when you can really work on a franchise player within your organization. And then, we would push the region forward, and you would probably be just as successful. Like, if we're just talking about, if you're comparing what we've already done in the LCS and where the current players, like I keep using TSM as an example because we're literally off of TSM. Like, once again, Spica has been an amazing jungler for TSM. And I don't think he would have gotten this opportunity at all if it wasn't for the import rule. If the import rule didn't exist, like, for me, would that even be a potential? Obviously, that's speculation, but based off of what TSM and what larger LCS organizations have done in the past, I honestly do not believe that would be the case. And so I just think we should make it so the audience, the fans, push organizations to really invest in young talent and reward them when they do that. So that's a culture change that I think we need.
Okay, so we're way over time. Andre is waiting to come on the show. I've got a couple quick things to run down at the end of this conversation. One, I'm going to do it here rather than the start of the show, but from here on out on the show, because I think Riot tends to have this philosophy of like, and by the way, this is my thing, don't blame Mark. Riot tends to have this philosophy of, we'll just wait for the media cycle to run over and we don't need to actually make a statement or comment on something. They do this on a lot of things, especially on the esports side. I'm tired of it. So I'm going to hold Riot accountable in a very little way. At the start of every Hotline League now, I will just say how long it has been since they refused to comment on this big issue. So actually, the first time I reached out to them was February 1st. It's now March 1st. It has been 1 month since Riot refused to comment on this stuff. We'll do this for however many episodes it fucking takes. Secondly, I do want to say I talked a little bit at the beginning of, or on Friday, about my concerns or some people's concerns around me being LCS blacklisted, and also that some teams were telling me, LCS media were told that players and owner and staff would not be commenting on stuff that owners don't want them to around this import stuff, essentially saying that some people were going to be silenced. I even had it happen once to me on the previous weekend. I can now report I did interviews with 8 out of 10 teams. The only 2 teams that I did not get interviews with this past weekend were TSM and Dignitas. Note on Dignitas, I asked for Dardoch, and Dardoch is a little hard to get a hold of. So far,
I'm sure after their losses too, those are not fun losses.
So far, well, I asked for him on Friday too, but regardless, it looks like I'm good with at least 8 out of 10 teams, maybe 9 out of 10. The TSM thing doesn't surprise me that much. Third, Jack and I had a conversation yesterday on Reddit. He says that he's down to do something with Mark and I and maybe somebody else sometime soon, some sort of roundtable discussion. So hopefully we can talk about that. And then finally, Darshan talked to me this today. I had previously said that the Players Association was not planning on making a statement or doing an interview. He and I have an interview planned for tomorrow. We'll see if it ends up happening, but Players Association apparently going to speak on this now. So those are your updates on all this stuff. Thank you so much.
Darshan in action.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I took a note on, I forgot to bring. I do actually think it is worth talking more about, like, if this import stuff got lifted, would it be worth it for teams to... Basically, I need to learn a little bit more about what happened with Valiant and Overwatch League, where it's an LA-based team, but they like took co-ownership with some Chinese company, and I think that team moved to China and now fields all Chinese players. Again, some people raised this concern before around, like, will LCS organizations get bought out by foreign organizations, possibly even China, and then field entire rosters made up of players from that region. So I think it's something worth talking. Thanks so much, Raz, for coming on the pre-show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
15-minute pre-show.
We're gonna take a quick break. This is all gonna stay in the thing because we're not gonna edit.
We don't care.
Yeah,
But Raz, thanks so much.
I mean, yeah.
Are you staying on, Raz?
Raz, do you have any?
The way you said "we" was funny.
All right, peace.
I was like, you just invite yourself on the.
Raz, do you want to shout anything out?
Oh, shout out to Mr. Razzle Plasm, and shout out to the Unified Grand Prix and Amateur Tier 1 event that's actually already had their games played today, and tomorrow's going to be losers finals, and the day after that's going to be the grand finals. Please pay attention to that. On the topic of amateur talent, there we go. Sweet, take it easy, guys.
Thank
See
you.
ya. Thank you.
Bye.
And shout out to Tidy Cats.
Okay. Raz is gone. Where's our friend Guilhoto?
I think he left.
Guilhoto? Did he give up on us?
He said, "Fuck these guys."
Let's see if he's added me on Skype yet.
I don't know what his Discord tag is. I tried to add him in a. Oh.
He says added you on Skype.
He said he can't join the Discord. Wait, what?
He just needs to. Oh, he can't join our channel, but he just
Oh.
needs to join a different channel. We can pull him in.
Yeah, if you can join one of the pleb calls channels, I will save you from the masses.
Also, he says he added me on Skype. I need him to just shoot me a message or something because I'm not seeing it. While Mark, do you want to coordinate with him while I read off some subs just so that we don't have dead air?
Well, he can't join any channel. Did we ban him?
I don't know why we would have. I mean, if he can see the server, he should be able to join a channel on it. Oh, he's in the one of the channels. We can move him in.
Wait, where is he? I don't see him.
He's down at the bottom. Hello.
Oh, you got him.
Holy shit, man.
Welcome. Everyone can hear you, so if you need to cuss, that's fine. But
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
No, you're good.
I
you're
don't know,
good.
man.
It's
I
not
couldn't join any channel. I don't know why.
It's all good.
I
Can you
can't
shoot me a
imagine
message?
I can't imagine a more LEC way to join this call than to just say, "Holy shit, man!" Like, it's the most LEC thing ever.
Can you shoot me a message on Skype? You said you added me, but for some reason it's
Yeah.
not popping up. Maybe if you just shoot me a message, it'll show up in my chat stuff. While that is happening, let me switch over your.
While he's filling random stuff. How you doing, dude? Sorry, we went 24 minutes over.
No, it was an interesting conversation. I liked to hear it at least.
Yeah.
I'm doing fine.
Nice.
Could be
Is
better,
there
could be worse.
Yeah. Is there anything that we should bring up? Because I don't know if there's a reason. Like, is there something you want to talk about in the show? Is there anything that's a hot button issue that Guilhoto wants to talk about before we dive into callers and stuff? Because since we're a little late, I'll probably get going on the callers faster.
I mean, not really. To be fair, I think that the only hot topic that has been going around was talked already. So, I at least from my side, there's not much. So if you want to go to callers, or if Travis
I'm going
wants
to call you.
talk about something.
I'm going to call you on Skype right now, Andre. If you can just answer, but immediately mute your Skype webcam, not webcam, microphone, so that we don't get you.
Yeah.
I mean, the other hot topic a little bit, though this somewhat self-centered, was the jungle power ranking list. I assumed I was going to have to defend that from a caller at some point, so keep.
I didn't see it, to be fair.
Oh, you didn't? I put closer 8th, and it was through the first 9 games only, no regular season, not rating based off my own perception of his skill, but just his first 9 games.
You had to know you were going to get blowback for that, or you just assumed that people would be.
I knew
thoughtful
people were going to be fucking mad about it.
Maybe that's why you did it, no?
No, I mean, dude, who wants to sign up to get flamed by the entire community? Like, everyone, like, it's not a hard thing to come up with a safe list. Like, okay, put Blabber at the top, Santorin, probably closer, then Dardox, Sven, Spica in some order, there, based off personal opinion.
Yeah, I would probably just be, like, faster on putting Santorin, not 8th, right? But, like, a bit lower than just closer a bit lower, to be fair. Because I feel like TL can perfectly win without Santorin, but if Closer is not having like one of the best games of his career, then 100 Thieves has a really hard time.
Okay, I'm going to officially start the show now, guys. Ready? Here we go.
Yeah. I didn't know we even started.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, we were on pre-show, right? So Okay, and hello everyone, and welcome to Hotline League episode 162. There's no reason for me to have done a dramatic reentrance, but I'm doing it now because whatever. Hopefully, if you decided to skip the pre-show part of the YouTube and the podcast and all that stuff, you can catch us now. I'm going to go ahead and go around and talk to our host and our guest tonight. But first, thank you to Alienware and GameFuel for sponsoring the show. We will talk more about them later. Mark, how you been?
Good. We were in the middle of discussing the tier list stuff, so we'll see. Maybe we'll get back into it later. Maybe not. I'll have to see if it's a caller comes in or whatnot.
Yeah. Anything interesting happened to you this week besides that? Getting flamed by the community?
No.
I've been playing Valheim for the past for an insane amount of hours over the past couple of days, and I think you had played it, yes?
Yeah, I played Valheim. I slowed it down on it a lot. I need a game to listen to audiobooks to while I play, and it was a pretty good one.
Nice. Well, either way, I'm playing with a group of friends, including Calby, and so that's been quite fun. Next, let's go ahead and introduce our guest co-host for tonight. It is Andre Guilhoto.
Yeah,
help me out here. How do we do it?
Man, it's Guilhoto. It's Portuguese. Like the LH, it's so hard to say. I don't expect anyone to get it right. I don't even get mad at it anymore. Just call me Andre. Like Travis, just Andre.
We got Andre here, whose tag is Guilhoto. Obviously, people might know you as IMT coach, but for the folks that don't watch LEC, do you want to talk about your history?
Yeah. So I started in coaching my university, basically. And then I went through Portuguese League, Spanish League, won everything in Spain with Giants. Then I went to Schalke, spent a year in Schalke. Then franchising hit. Franchising hit before I went to Schalke. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, didn't Schalke come in as part of franchising, or am I crazy?
Yeah, but then it's like actually franchise hit after Schalke. Actually, I was with Krep at Schalke. He's he actually helped me a lot. Now that he's in chat, I can tell him you did beat. It's not like you beat me in poker, Mitch. You just you were so annoying at poker that I would just tilt and then lose. But he was good.
Are you the reason he's never been in our chat before, and now I guess you're the reason you summoned him?
No, I don't know. But after Schalke, it was a franchise, so I think Schalke did something very, very well. I think Mitch also had something to do with it, which was every contract that they signed for that year was basically allowing players to, and coaching staff, when franchising hit, to look for new opportunities, and that's what I did. And then I was 2 years in Origin, so 3 years in LEC, 2 finals to coach Stuff to Split, and then came to NA.
Very good. Well, there you go, everybody. And I think you've been on some other stuff before. I was warned about having you on here because at one point in time, apparently you tore into Ender on a live broadcast. And so I'm very terrified. I hope you'll be nice to us. Mark and I were both friendly people. All the callers, they're great people. No need to...
he was on one of our MSI ones.
Yeah. He was. No, it was Rift Rivals, right?
Rift Rivals.
Yeah.
And that show didn't end, so it was, or at least with me,
Yeah, very good. Well,
you killed Rift Rivals. That's what you did. Yes. We didn't have one last year.
Yes. Anyway,
last year Rift Rivals.
We didn't have one last year.
Yeah, because COVID.
No, 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Sorry.
2019. Yeah.
It was a very weird one because I was very, very surprised with. It was my first big shock with the, let's say, my camera is fucking up.
Yeah,
with the NA mentality, where it was basically after the split that G2 just had one MSI, and there was at least one team that was basically saying they don't want to scrim LEC teams because they don't want to give away their secrets. And that to me showed me, to be honest, there's MSI champions here, and if you kind of have that mentality, something is going kind of wrong. Yeah. So that was the first shock that I had, and then of course the whole Rift Rivals was just everyone kind of troll picking and still beating NA teams. So from a new team, it was kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, either way, happy to have you here and to talk about how your world joining LCS has been. Actually, maybe that's a quick question we can ask before we get into callers. But what has it been like for you? I mean, you said that was your first exposure to the LCS mentality. Now you're part of the LCS. So what has it been like for you since you've been here? Has it even been has it been tough? I don't know.
I don't think it was tough. I think that it did change a bit. Some of the things that you guys talked on the pre-show with teams investing less and whatnot. I think that was something that was actually probably the main reason why I decided to take the Immortals project instead of one of the offers in EU, because it opened up to building up kind of my own stuff, and that's something that I wanted above everything. But I do think that the main difference that it is from those Rift Rivals to now is probably coaching staffs, where I think that at least this year with Peter coming and Alfonso coming, even to a certain extent, Sharks and Kanani, I think that
for a second I thought you were going to only name LEC coaches. You're like, the coaching's gotten way better now that we got these LEC.
No, and I did, and it's true. And I stand by that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, like, obviously it's not like NA didn't have decent coaches before. I think that Rainover and Inero are two of the ones that at least I have great respect for. But now there are more.
Yeah.
And especially in academy, I also see that a bit more. So it has been different. But man, my camera is like trolling me. I'm tilting so hard.
Dude.
Yeah, I know.
Your camera's
so
drunk.
cringe.
Maybe turn off the light, the overhead light or something. I think it might be the lighting in the room.
All right, let's see.
We're interviewing a blurry pixel.
Yes, exactly.
Man,
see.
it's actually like EU cam.
Yeah. EU cam. It's like the TSM cameras. Their stuff has been really, really wonky as well. I don't know. Maybe wipe is the lens dirty at all? I don't know.
No, I don't know. I think it's just like Skype sucks, man.
Well, while that is
here we go.
Oh, well, if you want, we can also just post a picture of you up. I don't know if that'll be better.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know if this keeps that way. Probably it's better.
That's
but
weird.
anyway, I think that like it has been different for sure since the past 2 years. I think that like probably after this Worlds was the main year that something actually was tried to be done in order to turn things around, but it kind of disappeared really fast.
Yeah.
So maybe now it gets a bit worse. I still think that problems like there's no rivalry in the league. I think that C9 and TSMTL are really not a rivalry between each other at all. And the fact that broadcast, obviously, I was a bit and still am a bit critical of, and I think that there is a difference.
Do you think it's the people on the analyst desk that are the biggest issue for the broadcasts? Anyone in particular that's bringing down the broadcast? The analyst
No,
desk?
I don't think it's like a person in particular. I think that, for example, when it comes to casting, Captain Flowers is insanely good, and I think that I hope I don't pronounce her name wrong. Litigres is also doing very well, but I think that the whole how do I say it? The whole program that there is around the LCS is a bit lacking.
Yeah.
Like in LEC, obviously you have the pre-show, and as Raz said, when you're out of the studio, it's way easier. But also the post-game lobby, it's something like extremely interesting, and not seeing those kind of things, and then seeing some like weird mistakes like we had during our tournament, where broadcast was just saying that Xerxes is the one not here and whatnot, just shows that maybe some more research and whatnot can be done. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just it takes time. Like something that I realized from being here is that NA has so many issues. It's not like EU doesn't. EU has a lot of issues as well, but NA has so many, and people expect them to be fixed like so instantly that then it's just you never fix an issue before moving to the next one. You just try to fix everything at the same time, and that obviously won't work.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and get into the calls because I know we have to. We're running a little late, and I do want to get a chance for people to ask Andre
I will
stuff.
speed run the intro for people who have never seen the show before. It is a live call-in show. I'm spamming Discord in the Twitch chat. Go ahead, join up there. When you get there, join the Pleb Calls or Pleb Calls 2 voice channels. Mute once you get in there, and then up above that in the Pleb Topics text channel, you'll go ahead and write what it is you want to talk about. And if I like it, I will pull you into the waiting room where you'll hang out till it's your turn, do an audio check, and then assuming everything's good, we'll get you on air talking with Andre.
Very good. And while Mark is doing that, I'm going to read off some subs.
No offense to Mark, by the way, on the broadcast thing. Like,
it's too late. He's already out.
No,
I can't hear you.
Here,
and you should always be fine.
Okay, he's back. Like, shut up.
Okay. Dravor is here. Dravor, where are you calling from?
Chicago, Illinois.
Chicago. And, well, I'm sure you have an idea on what the LCS should do. What is your call about tonight?
My call is basically just about, I think EG is like not a good team, and they're just like being hyped up, like, you know, falsely, I guess you'd say. I feel like definitely, first of all, it's just he's not actually good. He's just like stable, like KDA kind of player, I guess you'd say. He gets these giant leads, and you just never see him take over a game, like, you know, Sven on MF or something like that. Plus Jizuke, I genuinely think he's trolling and does not take LCS seriously. This guy, like, it looks like he just tilts off the planet, even on his cam. Like, he just looks like he's not interested. So, like, obviously I'm, you know, speculating, I don't know, but he doesn't, I don't know, he's just trolling a lot of the time, it feels like. Sven Skaren, the same. Like, I don't know, he seems like he's fallen from grace since C9. And it just feels like Impact is honestly trapped. It looks like he's trying so hard, and he's just trapped. And basically, I think they'll get to playoffs, but get 3-0'd. Like, I don't think they're actually a title contender, even though people are saying, you know, they are.
Wait, who's saying EG is a title contender?
Well, I guess title contender might not be like the right word, but people are saying, oh, they're in contention. I guess you just see it like on no one noteworthy, I guess, just like Twitter, you know, maybe stuff like on like talk shows. Like,
I mean, so EG did, to your credit, caller, the EG did get a lot of hype, especially early on. People felt really good about Deathly's performance, especially in lock-in, and I think people were pretty excited about them then. I do think that people's passion around them has somewhat chilled since that time.
I think that's fair. But oh, sorry, you go.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I still feel like even now they're like, people are like, oh, are they gonna bounce back and stuff? It's just like, I don't think there was a bounce back. I think that in lock-in they were versing academy rosters, like IMT was using, you know, their academy roster for a bit, teams that like just came together and whatnot. And even though they did, they're like all veterans, so it wasn't as big as a, you know, shift. So I think they just like took, you know, they had like an advantage there, but this team was just like never a top team. You know what I mean? Like that, at least in my opinion. I feel like it's just Impact that's a solid player, and then like sometimes you get that Jizuke that'll carry, but most of the time it just seems like you're getting a trolling Jizuke with an 80 carry that just will never carry you. Just be safe, you know, a stable guy.
Mark, before I throw the color to the wolves with Andre, who I feel like has some big opinions, what do you think? What do you think of the take in EG right now?
I mean, I kind of agree with like what Andre was saying of who's calling them top 4. I mean, even Empire in the chat was like, who's hyping us? Like, I think there was a bit of, I think it's fair that there was some at the start of the split where they were, you know, it was lock-in. There were a lot of teams that weren't looking great, but they were doing well, and people were just like, hey, this is better than what they thought initially the thing was going to be. And I think they were 3-1 in their group. I think they finished first in it technically. Yeah. And then they busted out right after that. So like, okay. After that, I think they came down to earth a little bit, and since then, people have been like playoff-bound team, middle of the pack, unless something changes. So that's where they land for me. So
there's a couple things in there though, Mark. Like for instance, the caller Dravor was saying that he thinks Sven Skaren is just like kind of fallen off. High had him number 2 on the jungle power rankings. You had him number 3. I get that you were somewhat trolling with yours, but I mean, like, do we really think Jizuke, for instance, is just like doesn't care about LCS? Like, there's a lot to dig into on that side of the call, right?
Holy.
I mean, I don't want to like. I don't know Jizuke at all. I don't know if I've ever fucking said a word to Jizuke.
He's
so,
a
like,
very nice man.
I'm probably the worst person in the world to like look at his webcam and be like, I know what he's thinking. Like,
I know him pretty well.
All right, is he trolling?
No. I mean, I worked with him for a year in Giants. He's actually like someone that I call kind of like a close friend, something that I care about, and I really like him. I think that he's just someone that he's not going to be a power of evil, you know. He's not going to be someone that like always perform well. Like Jizuke is probably, including with perks, the player that has the highest heights, or the mid laner that has the highest heights, but also probably the mid laner that has the lowest lows. And that's just Jizuke, you know. It's not like he doesn't care. Sometimes he'll 1v9 you the game. Sometimes he will just lose you the game. Is that someone that you want to have on a team? Like a lot of mid laners in the LPL are somehow similar, but the team adapts very well to that style. EG, in order to adapt well to that style, will probably need more practice. I think that the only take that I agreed from you is probably like Svenskeren when he's rated as second or third jungler. I think that's an overrating. But the rest of it, like, I don't know. I don't see anyone putting EG as a contender. I think that it's like reasonable that people expect him to make playoffs, and that and the only argument that you can give, I think, is what the way that they are performing acceptable between commas with the money that they are investing in this team. That's the only take that you can go. But in terms of like if they are not a contender, I don't think anyone argues with that. Honestly, for me, the way that I see EG, especially with like Peter and Kelsey coming in, it's more of rebuilding the whole organization, and if they are successful in that and with the staff that they have, they should be, then it's fine. But I don't think, I mean, if they are planning to be contenders to up this year, then it's just, I think that's not I don't think that's their idea, or at least if it is, it's like it would be like an overachievement in a way.
I mean, Mark, you put Svenskeren number 3. Andre disagrees with you. He says it's an overrating.
Okay.
I would put it like number 6, maybe.
Mark, would you put him? What do you think of putting him number 6?
I mean, I obviously I disagree. I mean, I put him third. So like, we can talk about that if you want. I think Svenskeren has a bit of a difficult job having to play around Jizuke. I think, like Andre's saying, he's going to take a lot of risks. And I think if you're going to lean into that style, you can't necessarily go for like optimal pathing and like stuff like that. I think you have to be ready to like scrap mid whenever the scrap comes. And so I think he's been pretty good at that. I think he's largely done a decent job supporting Jizuke. As that's what I see a lot of the early game stuff being played around. So that's why I thought he was good. I thought he was doing a good job of doing what the team wanted him to do, and it was pretty proactive. He was, I mean, obviously I like his stats. That's not a surprise. And I think he was. I don't remember them anymore because it was 9 games instead of 12. But he was, I think, top 3 in kills and assists at 15 overall. I think I can maybe pull him up again. Let me double check.
Well, regardless, while you're pulling them up,
he was second, actually. So Blabber's running over the whole fucking game. Blabber's a fucking madman. Blabber's the greatest jungler North America has ever seen.
True.
And then Svenskeren was actually second in kills and assists at 15, which, you know.
But isn't EG also the number 1 or number 2 team with most kills and assists, and then they just like throw their lead?
Let me double check that. I don't think they all were.
Because like, I'm also coming out of like my memory, you know, and maybe I'm mixing up non-stage games and stuff, but that's how I always felt.
I mean, that's one of the things that I think is always interesting when you talk about tier lists is what people are pulling from. So like, are you rating stage games? Are you rating based off your opinion? Because you guys play what, twice as many scrims 3
No,
times
I'm
more trim
definitely
than the
going
league.
on my opinion. That's why I'm not coming here as like, no, I'm definitely right and you're wrong on that aspect. It's more like I honestly didn't look at the stats, and that's just like my opinion. It's not like it's like that, and that's it. It's just that's how I feel.
Yeah,
Things are getting hot on this show as Andre and Mark
No, I'm pretty sure he's right.
at each other's throats.
I fucking hate this site. Hold on. I'm trying to limit the game range from 12 games to 9. I forget how to do it.
Hopefully you're not talking about Tim's amazing site.
No, not Tim's. This is the right one. The right one's actually pretty robust. Okay, I got it. No, it didn't work. I'm sorry if I'm wasted. If no one else finds
it's fine.
but I love stats. So like, if you ask me to do something like this,
here, I'll say goodbye to the caller while you look it up.
Stats are really nice, but have you ever tried to interpret stats?
No, I hate that. I actually just like to look at one stat, and so when I see closer was highest in XP differential, I just took it as word, and I didn't look at the fact that he actually was playing with the mid laner with the lowest XP differential in the league in Damonte, and I didn't actually.
So it just like takes midways.
Yeah, did you actually know that he has the highest percentage of farm not from jungle camps of junglers?
He has the tax.
He's got attacks, but I just look at one stat. I don't actually try and find correlations at all. That's not me. I don't look at the fact that his bot lane has the highest bot forward percentage in the league. It's also the biggest CSD when you take out their Senna games in the league, and the fact that they have bot priority. And then when you talk about objective control and you give all the credit to the jungler, I think that's a little weird.
If I could interrupt,
I don't know about that. It's not as easy.
No, you can't, Dravor.
No, I don't.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I went off on my tangent.
Go ahead. Wait 1 second, Dravor. Andre, did you want to reply?
No, it's just like so basically. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. It seemed like the point that you're making is so their bot lane is very good, so their jungler has to be bad.
No,
that's why it's safe place because their bot lane is good.
No, I don't think closer's bad. I think, and I want to be clear about that. A couple of things that people have, gotten confused about, maybe from me not being clear what, but I don't think closer's bad. I think he's really good. I think there are things that he does that's really good in the games. Like I actually think he plays around his priority really, really well, and not just around objectives, but like crashing waves to threaten dives and push people off. Being able to use that vision control, like to help snowball some days, so he's safe to keep like playing. I think he does a lot of that stuff really well. But I think a lot of the advantages that 100 Thieves do get are a team thing. And I think, playing a ton of Olaf, I think he's played like at that point it was like 5 Olaf games, 3 Taliyah games, while having the lowest kills and assists. This is a stat that people don't know that I found later, was like he's tied for the lowest kills and assists all time LCS through the first 10 games. Like I think if you're going to pick Olaf and do a lot of full clears and play around priority to go get objectives, and that's your team's game plan, that's fine. But I don't think that that's a super difficult play style. And I think a lot of junglers in the LCS, if they had a bot lane that had that much priority, could do that. And that was basically the crux of my argument.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah, okay. And that was the crux of my argument, is I think, like, if you were Jose Guilhoto, like, no flame at FlyQuest bot lane, but like, those guys are getting, like, the first, like, 6 games, they're getting crapped on. And so, like, when you're trying to rate what a jungler is doing in the game, for me, it really comes down to, like, what is he working with? And that's something where it's like, I bet a bunch of junglers would love to be able to go take Dragon, like, in that Dignitas game that happened this weekend. This doesn't count when I was rating him, but, like, I feel like that Dignitas game this weekend, they ran at Dragon 3 times in a row, and it's like, how many teams have that luxury? And I don't think, like, Xerxes could do that. I don't think a lot of people have that. And I think, closer
according to our caller, not EG.
Yeah. So like that was the base of my argument. Not that he's bad, not that, he's the reason that 100 Thieves is struggling. Huhi, by the way, has stopped roaming. Damonte's mid-champ pool is an issue. Like, they don't fight. It's not just him. I don't want to ever point it that way. I just think that, what happened through the first 9 games was replicatable by most junglers in the league.
Okay. Dravor, you can now speak.
Okay, thank you. I just want to know if you guys agreed or disagreed about Deathly, because, basically that. Do you think he's actually good, or do you think he's, like, just there?
I mean, that's hard to answer, because I think that being just there, it's not necessarily a bad thing, I feel like Deftly, it's usually not necessarily the reason why EG wins games, but I don't feel like he was ever the reason why they lost, you know? And even though you don't see it working super, super well right now, the fact that they have an extremely volatile mid laner, if they are able to have a stable bot laner that will also be able, and definitely does this frankly well, I think it's one of his strengths, that he can just like maintain a lot of lane states on 1v2 and allow Ignar to just do Ignar things and roam, then he's gonna do his job. Is he gonna be like flashy and have insane stats? No, he's gonna be usually behind in CS and just try to scale for team fights. But that's EG trying to adapt on the rest of the players they have to the roster. So that's what I mean by it's very hard to rate Deftly as a player, because his role on a team will never be, at least on this team, I feel like will never be to be the main carry. So he will never show you what you expect to see from a great AD carry.
And I think that's not, like, when you're building a team, not everyone can do like the IG from 2019, right? Or was it 2018, whatever. IG when they won Worlds, where it's like 3 lane carries, like that's a really hard balance to strike. And so like there's a finite amount of people that you can play around usually in a game. And so if Deftly's role, as Andre's saying, is to be weak side, so Sven and Ignar can go make plays and they're playing around Jizuke and impact a little bit more, then that just sounds like a team that was put together with something in mind, like a vision of how they wanted to play the game. And I don't think that should necessarily be held against Deftly or something.
Dravor, thank you so much for the call. Is there anything you want to shout out before we move on to, actually before I take a quick break to reference something that I forgot to reference earlier? Dravor, anything you want to say?
Sure. Shout out to GameFuel, sponsoring you. Shout out to Alienware, and shout out to Listen Loco, the last episode, by far the best episode. It's a great listen if no one's listened to it. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Wow. All right.
Oh,
well, thank you so much for the call.
Thank you.
I just want to apologize. We were so distracted with the pre-show that one thing we forgot to mention at the start of the show was that MSI got officially announced today, and that there's a brand new format as well for it. I don't know, Mark, if we saw any takes about that, but it would be good to talk about it. If not, if you didn't pull anybody, maybe we just do a quick chat about it now.
I didn't see any, nor did I pull any. So
okay, so let's just talk about it really quickly. Actually, Andre, I assume you saw the new format for MSI. Just to confirm.
I saw it was in Iceland, but that's it. I didn't see.
Well, here's the thing.
Anything.
I'm going to play this video for you right now on the stream that we actually made at Travis Gafford Industries.
Travis loves recycling his content.
It's good. Actually, wait, I just realized I gotta download this. But yeah, so it's they're doing it. It's in Iceland, and it is happening. It's actually happening. Valorant is happening right after it, so they're actually kind of tying the two together, which is really interesting. And they haven't really done anything like this before. And I have a big interview. If anybody's curious why they're doing Iceland, I have a big interview on my channel about it that people can go check while I'm stalling for time so that I can pull up this video that breaks it down. But here we go. I'm going to play it. I don't know if you can see it, Andre. There we go.
The Mid-Season Invitational is back for 2021, and for the first time ever, the best League of Legends teams in the world will head to Iceland to fight for the trophy with a fresh new tournament format. "12 teams from around the globe will head to Reykjavik, where they will quarantine for COVID compliance before competing from May 6th to May 23rd in a group stage, a rumble stage, and finally a knockout stage. In groups, the teams from each region will be grouped into 4 tiers, based on historic performances. They will be randomly drawn into 3 groups of 4 teams each, with each group featuring 1 team from each tier. Each group will play a best-of-1 double round robin, and the 2 teams with the best record in each group will advance to the rumble stage. In the rumble, the remaining 6 teams will play another best-of-1 double round robin. and the 4 teams with the best record from that stage will then advance to the knockout stage. The knockout stage is a standard best-of-5 bracket, with the number 1 seeded team selecting either the 3rd or 4th seed as their semifinal opponent. The semifinal winners will play in the finals on May 23rd, in a bid to become the 2021 MSI champion.
Andre liked that video so much that he actually got up in the middle of it while it was playing.
No, I mean, once I understood it, I just picked up some water.
Okay, good. So that's what it is. So one, NA officially second tier according to this. Secondly, they have 2 group stages, and a lot of people are kind of upset about the best of one, the double best of one group stage situation. Anyway, Mark, you've had some time to see this and think about it. I don't know if you have any hot takes on it.
My hot takes are actually kind of negative. I'm a negative Nancy. I think the double round robin is kind of weird. Not the double round robin, the double group stage.
Yeah.
Because then you get best of ones in matchups that you've already seen a bunch of times. Like the 2 teams from each group go into another group together, so you get 3 groups of 2 of matchups you've already seen playing best of ones again, which I don't think I like. You know, like it just because usually what happens in play-ins is the teams fight to earn the spot in the main stage, but then they usually fuck off into different groups. But here, everyone's going back together, and it just feels really weird to me.
Not to mention, I think what's also kind of weird about this is like we have to watch. Like, let's say maybe EU is great this year. I don't know, but like the top 2 teams.
Oh no.
Podcast listeners.
We love cats here, man.
There's
If
an
you
animal
want to
that
show her off, him off, what?
Yeah, whatever. Great.
Oh, that's a cute kitty.
Is it? Did you bring that animal with you from Europe?
Yeah.
Do you sleep on a mattress
No,
with bed
this
frame?
is not my room, man.
I was about.
Man, Immortal's really on budget this year. Welcome, Coach. This is where you'll sleep. Or is a spot for your
like
cat?
A choice, you know, like Andre's
No,
all
this
like
is
monks,
this is not
you know?
my room.
Okay.
This is not my room.
I thought it was like those monks, the aesthetic monks or whatever, like sleep on the ground.
That's
You
the
know,
room
Like the
for
players,
whichever.
I have 2 rooms.
That's the room for whichever player underperforms the most in scrims every day. Anyway, okay.
Actually,
Back to
Revenge would love it because this little midget is always asking to see my cat.
Jesus. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about the situation. So one of the things with the group stage is that I'm a little worried because let's say like LCK and LPR are the best. Maybe LEC will be or something like that. But you're gonna have like 1 or 2 teams that are just crazy, and you have to just watch them like slaughter all these like wild card teams or whatever for however many games. It's just like crazy to me that we're gonna see, you know, every team play each other in this group stage. I'm very curious on how it goes. So
Yeah.
To me, I like the format. To be fair, I understand where Mark is coming from, but for me, it's just I see the best teams play against each other more. So if there are more games, I like it. It's more that way.
yeah.
It's like, I'm a simple man.
Okay. Well, it's an interesting format. We'll have to see how people feel about it as we get closer to the event. But I did want to call out for that. Let's take another call and then we'll take a quick break and hopefully we can catch up because I know we're kind of behind. Mark has already grabbed him. That's great. So a couple of quick shout outs to Kyle0808 for gifting subs. Arcruzif, Salizar, Metal Sparty, Perchy99, core user, Twitch. Okay. ThiccmanGAMING is here. ThiccmanGAMING, where are you calling from?
Hi, what's up? I'm calling from Princeton, Illinois.
Princeton,
Small
Illinois.
town.
Nice. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So today I want to talk about how Immortals could very possibly become a new staple team for what I would like to call the second era of the LCS.
Okay, do you want to elaborate on that? What do you mean by staple team and what do you mean by second era?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that Immortals has probably went more out of their way than anyone else in their gameplay and more than likely like their social media presence, just to kind of make a staple name for themselves. Something that really, I think, like proves to me, like first off that they did this was when the first blood against Alfari. No one was expecting that. That was just It made me almost an instant fan. I was never really a fan of Immortals before that. And just, looking more into this team, they definitely had a lot to offer.
And then what do you mean by second era?
So, I mean, if you really think about it, and this might be just like a personal take of mine, I don't really want to get too much into this, but I think that LCS has kind of went from like a point where we now have almost a all new analyst desk. We have, newer casters. Just overall, I think that the LCS, especially after their rebranding, it feels different than it once did. You no longer have like the original casters, or I mean, you have some of them like Freak, of course, and I just overall feel like, I guess this is just more of like a new team for a new era.
Gotcha. So are you more excited about the play and the gameplay, or are you excited
no,
about like their marketing and sort of content stuff?
So let's talk about the bad before we talk about the good, right? I think there was quite a bit of bad before we got to this new Immortals type of team. I mean, 2020 was not their year, right? I don't think anyone would agree that 2020 was a great year for Immortals. When they came back, especially off of their year, which I think was 2016, right? Where they were just popping off and they got on that huge win streak.
With the Rune one, yeah.
Yeah. And it was, I think, like Wild Turtle, Pole Belter. Anyways, they were so explosive that year. And when I seen them coming back, I guess I had some excitement, I mean, it was kind of like, oh, cool. Like this team from 2016 are making their way back. And then
you just feel like they didn't do a great job in 2020,
no.
but you feel like 2021 they're going to start to do it.
Yeah, I mean, so far, no one I think here can disagree. They have a decent track record. They're kind of like in a coin flip, I would say, right now. But I mean, it's one of those things where it's technically where this would still be spring, and I just think forward coming summer, these guys get a little bit more experience. I think that they could definitely take a lead and run with it.
Gotcha. Okay. So here's my thing. I really like that they have hired Andre. And I'm not just saying that because he's on the show, even though it might seem that way. But I do think great pickup, obviously a storied coach and has a lot of success in Europe. And I'm excited for what they do there. I'm now going to talk about these things that don't involve Andre in any way whatsoever, which is like the content and the branding side. I personally do not think that they've done a great job on content and branding this year. I went and watched some of it previously. I think their video that they did with Mike, like walking around Summer's Rift, that was pretty creative. But some of their like vlogs and stuff, like there's a video that they did where they just go and pick up everybody at the airport. I don't find it to be particularly compelling, and I do miss that I do feel like you can look at a team like FlyQuest, for instance, who I do think is a newer team in comparison to your TLs, your C9s, etc. And they've really done a good job of putting a stake in the ground on who they are, what they do, and all that stuff from a marketing and content perspective. So that I think is why I still don't like. I'm not with you on the idea that like Immortals is going to be the next great big brand for LCS.
Could I make a case real quick against that?
If you can do it quick.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look at when FlyQuest first started. Snickers FlyQuest. That was the most cringiest shit, excuse my French, that I've ever seen in my life. I think like everything has a beginning, and I think for this being kind of Immortals' new beginning, it's definitely starting fairly well for them.
Yeah, but I would not use FlyQuest's terrible years as evidence. Like, maybe if I saw a great amount of stuff out of Immortals in 2021, I would agree with you and be like, yes, 2020 was their Team Snickers year. But I'm not seeing that now. Everybody in the chat getting timed out because they're all saying the C word that Andre. I know that Andre said
it's so fun to be a mod of this chat whenever a cat gets shown and just see the constant people getting timed out.
Yeah.
Well, why do you have that word banned?
It's a long story that involves Kobe.
It's not a long story. Kobe wants a cat. Travis doesn't want a cat, and so everyone was rebelling.
But
and
wait,
then
why don't you want a cat?
We have a limited amount of time on the show, and we're running late.
Okay.
We have 5 callers in the thing. I've got 2 ads to do. We're not having this conversation again. Okay.
Come on, GameFuel.
Okay.
I mean, obviously I do also want to touch on that, but I'll let Mark talk first, or let you finish. Sorry.
yeah, let Travis finish.
No. I'd said every sentence. Mark, go for it.
I'm not a very like brand conscious person, if that's not apparent. So like, you know, I give my thoughts, but like, I thought the thing was funny that Immortals did. I try and follow most teams and see what content they're putting out for like story beats and trying to keep up with the teams and stuff. Whether or not, you know, Immortals is going to become, you know, this great rebrand like FlyQuest managed to do, I don't know, dude. I don't have great thoughts on that. I think I like what they're doing on the Rift, like with hiring Guilhoto and going more with younger players and stuff like that. Like I, in general, am a big fan of that.
I will say I love revenge. All right, so I did this interview with him, a week and a half ago. This guy's great. We need to do more stuff with revenge. More people should follow him and care about him because he gave a great interview. I think he's done some really cool content, and I think he is an example of a rising star who could be great. I shouted him out and said I thought he should be part of the Players Association. Guillote, Andre's gone full blur. We're gonna switch back to the.
No, the camera should be back. I don't know. It's like it's.
I think it's your interest level. When Travis starts talking, it just blurs.
No, I mean honestly, I think that like I how can I say this? Like being, as you call it, the staple in this league, I think that's like not really gonna happen. Like obviously now with the whole import rule, you have a bunch of people and a bunch of like LCS audience being extremely hurt on their feelings that less American players will come up and whatnot. But then you see the engagement from Golden Guardians, FlyQuest, us, Dignitas, and teams that do have NA talent are like extremely low, and it's not like they are changing. So being a staple, it's I don't know, man. It's like it's just gonna be C9 TL TSM all the way. Man, Danon, stop messaging me on Discord. I'm just gonna mute you, man.
What is Danon saying to you on Discord?
I don't know, man. He's just like messaging me the Pokemon stuff. Who's this Pokemon with my camera? Because it's blur. Like, but anyway, I'd also do agree that our content is can be better and should and will be better. But that's also something that is part of the whole restructuring thing that we want to do and that me and Mike talked about when I joined. So I obviously don't think it's perfect, but before doing that, we kind of want to stabilize more on what is the structure that we want to look for on the competitive side, and then keep improving on our content and then on our fucking Dana and on our fan engage in the way that we communicate with fans. Something that I'm really happy that we were able to do so far is how open we are able to be. Not only through the Discord, I always try to go to the Immortals Discord and talk to people even when we lost. Of course, that there's a lot of fuss when I'm not there, and when I say, okay, I'm here and you can ask some questions, not a lot of people ask because they like prefer talking on our back, but I'll answer to everything anyway. And that's something that I think we are doing well, but obviously our content has to improve and it's going to take a while. But the being a staple thing, it's hard for me to agree when even a brand like Mark and Travis are saying that has done pretty well, like FlyQuest has a very, very low engagement anyway. So it's like just hard for me to believe that. Basically, I think it's way easier for you to become a staple in a market like EU than in a market like NA.
So just to push back, like a lot of people look at the FlyQuest YouTube, and I agree that the views there are not great, but they do get pretty good social engagement. They literally tweeted today 4 hours ago, the bumblebees need our help, and then just like a couple paragraphs about how bumblebees are endangered and all this stuff and how they're helping. It got 57 retweets, 325 likes. Like, that's pretty good.
But look at all the other ones. Why don't you say hi to Chonchi with 66 likes, 0 retweets, 0 comments?
The bee gods are with us. We earned that win against FlyQuest, 35 retweets, 900 likes. Like, that's not bad.
So what you're saying is like depends on who retweets it, right?
I think it depends on if they're tweeting about bees. That might be it. But no, I mean, I think there's a decent amount of that. You're right. There's nowhere near the top guys or whatever, but I do think their social sometimes does quite well, and I would like to see some of the other organizations start to get there.
Yeah, my point is, Travis, if, for example, if you're Rogue, right, and if you're Rogue and you're or Mad Lions and your approach to the LEC is that you're going young talent development, yada yada yada, etc. etc. Like, it's something that fits with the storyline of you. So it's easier for you to like develop your brand around that, right?
Yeah.
But in LCS, and that's where my critic is coming from, is even if people now are super mad with the import rule, deep down they honestly don't give a shit. Like, it's a hot take, but it's honestly my opinion, where I don't think they care. Even like the audience, it's like cares enough about the talent development when in this league we have teams. And I'm going to use more than us, Dignitas, Golden Guardians, and FlyQuest, that are indeed betting on development and NA talent and whatnot, and they don't get more fans because of that. So that even if, like, that's not the main reason, and that's not something that that would make them grow. And Empire has a great point. If they do care that much, then they wouldn't just... They would just watch Academy. Like, I don't know. So that's why I feel like it's super hard for you to become a staple brand, where in EU you can always go through being a rookie team and betting on that and whatnot. But in NA you can't, because the public is also not attracted to that.
Here's where I'll push back on you a little bit. I think I say this very nicely. Please don't come at me. There a lot of these teams have just like Dignitas left and then they came back and they like had this weird owl, then they bring back the Dignitas branding. It's hard for me to find what content that they have done, and they haven't done a lot to like push their players. You know, EG has been around for 1 year. They did like the Live Evil stuff for a little bit, and then their content fell off the map whenever like summer hit. Like Immortals actually did have some fans, quite a bit. Admittedly, a large part because they were winning, but back in the day they did, and I think a lot of it was the transparency from when Noah was around and you do those like Noah notes and all that stuff. So like, I do think, I look at the teams and I think a lot of the reason why they aren't as popular is because they haven't been around for a very long time. They go in and out of the league, or when they show up, they don't actually do that much. Now I totally agree that like winning is huge, and like a team can do some really great stuff, and if they're just not winning, it's going to be really tough for them. But I don't believe that like the exclusive way for a team to win is to like grab some hot imports and then like start winning. I think that there are other ways as well.
Yeah, but I never said that.
Oh, maybe I'm talking past you then. My apologies. You're just saying people are not going to like.
I'm just saying that like it's very hard to become a new staple. It's very hard for like TSM, TL, and C9 right now as such big established brands to ever like that anyone actually joins to that standard. At least that's what I understood that the caller was speaking about being a staple in the league.
You just need their owners to go say some really crazy shit, and then there's your opening.
Like I was gonna say, like 100 Thieves is an example of a team that you could argue has become a staple of the league in a relatively short period of time. Coming in at franchising, they had a really great split. They had great branding. They had the heist. They did a lot of stuff to really, really push their brand, and they, I would say, solidified themselves as a team that like North Americans identify as being one of the staple teams in the league. But you know, part of that recipe was success, and I don't think you can necessarily overlook that. The one thing I think having like openness around development league or developing players and stuff that it does is it might not buy you more fans, but it won't. I think it'll also avoid some haters, if that makes some sense. Like people will be more lenient with like a Golden Guardians with this roster than they would be if. I mean, I'll just point to CLG. Like a lot of people are really down on CLG because it's a bunch of older players who are struggling. So, like, I think maybe it doesn't necessarily get you a ton of extra people watching with development, but at least like people will be like, "Yay, someone's doing it" in a sense, and they won't hate your team whenever you take the stage.
Just as in a quick side that I know I shouldn't be taking because we're short on time. Kamikaze Platypus from Golden Guardians, who is a wonderful person who has done a lot for the amateur scene and did a lot of the great changes and a lot of the great work. I want to say all that before I disagree vehemently with his statements on Twitch. He says, "We literally just did a content piece about Niles that was polished and all put together. It has less than 10K views on YouTube.
And it was insanely good."
So here's the thing. They did one. They haven't done more. You can't just put one piece out and think that it's going to be really great.
I also agree with that.
And I also think that while that piece was well polished, and I'm friends with like Spellsy, who I think worked on it, and a bunch of I think that the piece is really well. I don't think it did a great job of telling the story of Niles or giving a reason to root for him. Like, did he give up like his college to do this? So did he? It looked nice, but like, I don't think that there's a great after you watch that video. I don't think that somebody who's watched it comes away with a great reason to be a Niles fan. It's not like I'm like, oh man, that story about his grandfather who played League of Legends in the 1950s and said passed on the legacy to his son is really, that's I think the stuff that I struggle with. You got to do more. You got to do it consistently. It takes a long time, and it is partially about success. But I'm unsurprised that it only got 10K views. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't do more of it, by the way. All right. ThiccmanGAMING.
Yes.
It sounds like, well, I think you sparked a pretty good conversation about the Immortal stuff. I'm sorry we don't have more time for you, but is there anything you want to say before we move on to the next caller? Or actually, before we take a quick break?
I think I agree with mostly everything you guys were saying, and the rebuttals were pretty nice. I mean, of course, there's always room to grow. Like you said, Travis, in 2016, they actually built up a pretty big fan base to when franchising started, and they weren't really included into that. I know a lot of people were heartbroken about that. But overall, yeah, I definitely agree. And
Very good. Well, thank you so much for the call, and we will catch you next time.
Yep, definitely. Bye.
All right. We're going to take a quick ad break to talk about Alienware. Alienware is fantastic. I absolutely love them. There was a couple things I wanted to say about Alienware. I'm trying to remember all of them now, but one, as always, I just want to shout out the people that continue to tweet when they get, when they make a purchase. It's always really cool to see. I retweeted somebody today named Trevor, who was looking for a new pre-built PC and decided to buy an Alienware Aurora R11 because they support me, which I really appreciate. Andre's still struggling with the webcam. Maybe if he had a webcam made by Alienware. They don't make webcams. Anyway, but if they did, they would be great. I really support, or I really appreciate all the support that you guys show.
But it's like, honestly, I don't know, man. I think it's actually Skype. Like, I think Skype's just...
It's not Skype, all right? Your webcam, Skype, your webcam is not focusing. It's not Skype.
Can you open up the settings somewhere and turn off autofocus?
Listen, I'm in the middle of an ad break, please, people. Could you not have your technical support issues?
I don't know.
Alienware.com/Travis.
I didn't come to Skype since like 20.
Alienware.com/Travis. Travis10 off. There's a link in the description on YouTube.
I literally didn't have it on load.
Really appreciate everything they do. They make brilliant monitors, amazing notebooks, fantastic desktops. Such awesome stuff. I really appreciate their support of the show. They allow us to do this show where we could have a very blurry Andre muttering to himself during the ad break, and even when that happens, they still won't punish me or drop me. Thank you so much to Alienware for their support of the show. Go check them out. We love Alienware. Okay, Andre. To be clear, your webcam and the webcam driver and all that stuff, that's what controls the focusing. Skype does not control the focusing of the webcam. So I don't know what to tell you, but it's not Skype. Okay. Mark is grabbing the next caller. Core user Twitch, thank you for subbing and then giving out 2 community subs.
Man, I don't know how to fix it.
Hiryu Yukai, thank you for the 4 months. Oh, we got our next caller. TomShoe is here. Beloved Hotline League caller TomShoe. Where are you calling from, TomShoe?
Back again. It's about time, too. Calling from Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So I wanted to talk about 100 Thieves' most recent game versus C9 and how Damonte kind of got absolutely clapped by Perks. I know that it definitely was not a good look. That game did not go well. Honestly, I would argue that he kind of did solo lose that game. Getting solo killed in lane and baiting teammates to his death, being late on rotations, and it really wasn't a good look, and it definitely attracted a lot of scorn from the Reddit community. But honestly, I think it's probably for the best that 100T is actually pushing Damonte out of his comfort zone in some of these champions that he may be either less comfortable with or that aren't in their their designated wheelhouse, which is slotting Damonte in like a roaming mid and having everyone else just kind of run around and do damage while he's just there doing rotations and just being first on the set. Because honestly, like if you're gonna run out here and if you're gonna sit here and stick to one style, that's really gonna limit you in the long run, especially in best of fives. And if we've known there's one thing that 100 Thieves has struggled with is getting over that perspective hump. They've been a very accomplished regular season team, and they've always managed to get the wins when they needed to. And just when it comes to getting that last little bit of push, to get over the line and win that best of five, it just doesn't seem like they've been able to quite do that yet. And being able to try and diversify now is probably just for the best. So like, if you might as well just go ahead and run out there and try the Azir and you get clapped. It's like, okay, if you get clapped, you're gonna get clapped. Like, so be it. It's better to just go ahead and do that now.
So Damonte trying out new things, pushing himself, and 100T making him do that is better for the team, even though it might look bad for Reddit.
Yeah, it's not even just Damonte, but like there's certain champs like in the meta that I haven't seen 100 Thieves play. Like has FBI played a game of Seraphine yet?
Nope.
I don't think so. Yeah, has like Damonte played a game of Sylos? Yeah. Like I saw Palafox play Sylas.
Yeah, he was the only one. You want to make that argument for the other 9 mid laners?
Say what?
I think he was the only one that played Sylas, no?
Who, Palafox?
Yeah.
The only Sylas I can remember is Impact top.
Yeah.
Yeah, but mid laner. So
Yeah.
But what I say is like when you have limitations, that is probably where you're going to get your most creative solutions, and that's what you need to get creative with it and diversify your picks, because sticking to one style, like that's not going to bode well. Like it's going to look good regular season, but when you lose, get reverse swept again. Like what are you supposed to do?
Let's get into this. So is it better for 100T to be diversifying themselves, pushing themselves, even though they're losing in the meantime? And is that what we're seeing, or is it just players that aren't failing to be able to do this?
I mean, I think that it's one of the two that we will probably never know the answer. It's either they are doing that where they are choosing to diversify their playstyle, or it's literally because in practice the style that they were playing doesn't work anymore because teams are just getting better, and that just like works worse and worse versus teams that, as long as teams start improving, and they now feel the need that they can only win if they actually transition to control mages. It's one of the two. Which one it is, it's very hard to know, and only they do. If it's the first one where they are diversifying, then sure, it can be seen as a good thing, and it will help them on playoffs. If it's the second one where that style is no longer working in scrims and stuff, then it's very worrying for the team.
I think their playstyle that they had through lock-in in the first couple weeks was a lot about like pushing waves and diving on the waves, especially at earlier windows than people are used to, like level 4 TP plays onto minion waves that like Damonte was doing and stuff. And whether the champions that they wanted to do it with started getting banned, or they just started playing worse and they pulled back on it for whatever reason, they really abandoned that idea. And that's why I think that they've pivoted to like the hard force Drakes with their priority, because they often have really strong pushing lanes. To the caller's point, they don't play Seraphine. They don't play generally losing matchups. And then they control a lot of Drakes, and that's how they've won their games, is because they kind of lose almost all their fights. They usually don't actually make a lot of plays, and then like come mid to late game, they have at least stacked 3 or 4 dragons, and then like the Dignitas game happens where they kind of throw it, or the CLG games kind of happen where they these other teams struggle against them in the soul fights or the elder fights or the baron fights. And so like I think that they're really struggling to find a play style right now that's consistently good. I mean, I know they have a good win rate, but I think, you know, you can see it in their player cams, some of their reactions. I think some of even their interviews, they acknowledge like obviously this is not the style they want, or like they don't want their games to look like this. They want to be cleaner. They have the highest average game time in the league by a pretty substantial margin. So they're obviously not closing games out quickly. So I think they are experimenting currently. Like I don't think this is. I guess what I was driving at with this was they have been experimenting. If you watch how they've approached the games, from going a lot less dive heavy to a lot more objective control heavy, and I think the scaling was part of that with the control mages. I think they actively are looking for a new style currently.
Spin. Yeah, so is this dive bot style just currently not possible with the current control mages? You know, that Damonte's playing? You can't do that dive bot anymore. At least not, you know, without getting
I
punished. in
mean,
lane.
you can't if he dies level 2.
Yeah.
Like
good point.
it's different timers. You'll have different timers, but it's harder to just like completely force prio, right? So then it's harder for you to do it.
Yeah. One of my real questions is how come we're not bringing out the melee mid laners anymore? I remember Palafox, you know, had his pop off Silos game, and I remember Damonte was actually played a frequent amount of melee mid laners, a fair amount at least last season. I saw some Silos, some Kiana, some Aurelia, some something. I don't know in what ways they're trying to diversify, or maybe they've just tried it and it hasn't worked yet. I don't know if they've, you know,
I mean,
considered that.
Support is too OP.
Say what now?
That's why support is too OP.
What? You just get peeled?
No. It's like whenever you're playing a melee mid, and the reason why you can force prio usually with those mids is because you are very good at fighting, right? So you have to always be in a position where you can fight. If there is a timer where, for example, let's say that you're playing versus a Victor, right? And Victor just freezes in front of his tower, and your bot lane doesn't have prio, then you as a melee will never play the game, right? Because your support is so strong that like as long as he is on fog, you can never approach a wave, so you just don't farm. Like basically, it's not that easy to play certain melees. Like you can look at melees, for example, like Seth, right? Where Seth, he can force prio on his own. But the problem with Seth is obviously whenever you're playing versus an Azir or a control mage, if at 10 minutes, if before 15 minutes you are unable to take 2 Drakes and dive 3 side lanes, then your champion just becomes very, very weak compared to a control mage, right? So you have to be able to get a super big lead that maybe you wouldn't need to have if you're playing, for example, Irelia mid. But if you're playing Irelia mid, you just need to have the ability that your jungle and support are on a winning spot, and they are able to influence mid in a very big way.
Honestly, being able to, you know, affect, you know, get perma prio and have winning bot lane, that sounds right up 100 T's alley.
Well, I was about to say exactly that, actually.
Yeah, but then I guess, yeah, sure. I mean, To be honest, I play 100 Thieves next week. I hope they play Damonte. I hope they play Aurelia mid.
Is this
So,
DM?
no, I mean, I don't want to try and analyze Andre's strategy too much here, but I think the idea that, like, if you're going to play these melee mids, like a Yone, like a Yasuo, you have to gank for it, and you have to actually try and play around it. Whereas, for the most part, 100 Thief style has been going actually from mid to their side waves. Their bot lane, Huhi actually has the highest duo proximity in the league right now. He actually roams the least in the entire league, which is weird because you would think that Huhi's a great roamer. And I think his roams are good when he does them, but they don't do it that much. And so, like, you could, I think, stylistically go, okay, closer, you're going to play ganking, you're going to play Gragas jungle, we're going to put Yasuo mid, and then Huhi, you're actually going to roam mid because they have prio usually bot lane. Like, I theoretically think they could do it, but then you're playing around Damonte carry, and you're like, we're going mid a lot. And do you want to be 2v2ing Perks a lot? I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think their bot lane could get priority. I believe they could. I just don't know if you actually want to go assassin Damonte gank his lane.
I mean, or you just like go full Doinby style and you just play Nocturne and Kled mid.
Nocturne.
Let's just go Ornn mid.
But no, Ornn like
Rumble,
okay.
Rumble top, Ornn mid. Let's do it.
I'm a Ornn mid expert.
No.
Because like we always last year we were always playing, or our biggest success was always playing Karthus, Ornn mid, and GP top every game. But right now it's just too hard to lane. Like the reason why, for example, Nocturne and Kled work. Nocturne, of course, like with his wave clear is absurd, and he does have a global. But and with Kled it's just like the same all in. But you do have ways to like fight better than the Ornn, and it's not like it works versus every control mage. But let's not compare Doinby to Damonte, or honestly to any mid laner when it comes to playing that style. You know, like it's just a different beast. If we use the fact that Doinby can make it work, so should the 100 Thieves, then it's like we are not really being reasonable, I would say. He's just special.
Hey Tom.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that you have to be such a big specialist for it to work. And you can also see from FPX that it's not necessarily always working. It works a lot of times, but it's not always working. But the level of expertise that you need to achieve with it, and like Doinby can probably just play at the highest of levels 100 different champions. Doinby can maybe do it with 3. So it's like
Monte.
three from these styles, from this style, I mean.
Yep.
So and you as a team as well, you need to be extremely well coordinated to pull these things off. So I think pulling it off, it's possible. Pulling it off by any NA team, it's not.
Hey Tom, thanks
That's
so
my
much for the
take on
call. Anything you want to say before we move on to our next caller?
Well, I just want to give I know you're rolling your eyes. I just want to give a congratulations and my condolences to RJS for, officially joining the Yasui club of officially getting fucked over by CLG. Because now I see that pretty much now all of Reddit is turned against him after being put into a completely terrible situation. Even though now that his his kill participation was 3rd, damage percentage was 3rd. Kill share was 4th, 5th.
This is a shout out, by the way, not a platform.
Even though he was completely getting shit done most of the time, and now he's
thanks,
now he's
Tom,
getting
for the
fucking
call.
benched again, and it's just like, oh my god, give me a break, CLG. No one wants to see this.
I'm gonna.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
You're making.
For the call. Perchy99, thank you. Huryakai. Let's see. Aquatic Banana. Gingmeyer. Team Hezi. Bobcat. Evelyn Nest. Cardboard Fly. ThiccmanGAMING. Azul Flower. Purple Sector. Gifted a sub to Crepo. Rico Suave. Harmered. Kura Love. Botman 5. Killing You Guy. 34 months. Slummy Broom. Rise 81, Mr. Vigglesworth. Are you messaging?
Revenge message me. Like
Oh,
I'll
okay.
mute him actually as well.
Yeah, everybody's messaging you on the show trying to distract you. Adrical World, core user, Twitch gifted a sub to Revenge. Real Foxy 1 with 39 months. Holy shit. Popeye Plays Games gifted a sub to Insanity. All your players are getting subs gifted to them. Blaine Blasphemy.
I like that.
There I Made One. My Winds Guide You, and I Am Justin T. Looks like Pinguim. Is that how you say it?
It's Pinguim, but same as Guilhoto doesn't
Pinguim! Vamos embora, velho!
Same as Guilhoto doesn't expect you to know how to say Guilhoto. I don't expect you to say Pinguim.
He said my name well, Travis. Just
Okay.
to put it out there.
Well, to be clear, it sounds as though he perhaps speaks other languages that do not, and maybe that's part of the reason why he pronounced it correctly.
Yeah.
Where are you calling from?
Don't worry. I'm calling from somewhere in Brazil.
Brazil.
Somewhere?
Gotcha. Okay. Well, what do you want?
Like near São Paulo.
Okay, nice. I went to Brazil once and really enjoyed it. Quite nice. Went to Rio. Is there? What do you got for us tonight?
Oh, so I had some questions for Guilhoto actually. Just from speaking Portuguese, you're already my favorite person in LCS. So, thank you.
Appreciate it.
So my question for you was more like your background and your trajectory so far. So you said you played in the Portuguese league, then you went to the Spanish league, then
Challenger Series.
Schalke, yeah, and then
Yeah.
Schalke, and then LCS. So I had more or less two questions. One was like, how is the Portuguese scenery right now? Because the last like professional Portuguese player I remember was Attila when he was playing for Vitality.
Oof.
And
yeah,
it's
the
no?
last one. It was Alternative X in Brazil.
I don't follow the Brazilian league, but let's not talk about
Okay.
that.
I mean,
and the other.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
And the other thing was like, since you are a well-renowned coach outside of Portugal and Brazil, have you ever thought about going either back to Portugal or coming to Brazil to coach like a team from the ground, or is that not in the scope so far? So yeah, those are my two
my
questions.
wife will kill me.
I didn't know you were married.
I mean, yeah, I got married like in when was it? November last year.
Oh
I was
wow.
gonna say, you better know your anniversary.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Wait.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I mean, she's sleeping now. She's still in Europe, so like we safe. But
No one linked this.
I actually don't know the day. When was it?
You don't know the day?
No.
Oh boy.
God.
Write it down on your hand.
I have to find a way to ask her.
Well, maybe you can, because I don't know how long this marriage is gonna last, Andre. I'm a little worried
It's
for it.
fine. It's like no. I mean, to be honest, we will get remarried anyway, so there will be a new day because like we couldn't because of COVID, right? So
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, to answer your questions, Portuguese league kind of shit. It's like, I mean, which is expected. It's probably one of the worst EU regional leagues. Just like in terms of infrastructure, salaries, league quality, in terms of competition. It's just, but it is some like we did have kind of a wave where a lot of players came out, and we do have some high talented players. You mentioned Attila, Alternative played in Furia, Zico is now playing in France, Rux is in Fnatic Academy. Who else? I mean, we had the Kick team that almost made it to the finals of the Challenger Series. So we do have a lot of talented players, but that's kind of like over now. There's not really a new wave coming out of Portugal. So to go into your second question with that, I will not coach in Portugal again. I plan on like in a long time to just have set up maybe a team in Portugal, but not really coach it. When it comes to Brazil, and that's why my wife's gonna kill me. She doesn't really want to go to Brazil, but I do. I have like set in mind that at some point in my career I want to coach a team in Brazil. I had the chance to go to a couple of teams in Brazil this year, but it's obviously still very early. Or before going to Brazil, I knew I wanted to go to NA first. But it's definitely a place that I want to go.
Will you be allowed to go?
I mean, I will. I guess. I mean, I'm forgetting my date already, so like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if that's gonna be a stoppage, you know. But I mean, at some point, I don't know when. I don't know if it's in 3 years, 3 years, 5 years. I don't know. But at some point, I would like to join one franchising in Brazil, whether that's Furia, Flamengo, Pain. Like it's all. It's actually a scene that I hold dear to my heart in a way, because obviously outside of Portugal is the other big league that speaks my language, and coaching in my language is something that I definitely want to do.
Yeah, because I asked you because I used to follow the Brazilian league more closely. I used to be a Ping fan, like back in 2011, but I haven't watched too much since because it hurts whenever I see like very basic stuff that solo queue players can tell like are wrong. So I'm just sticking to like major leagues right now. But yeah, thank you very much for the answers. If you ever come to Brazil, I'm looking forward to watching whatever team you're coaching.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Caller, do you have anything you want to shout out?
Oh, actually, I have another question to Guilhoto that he doesn't need to answer because it's not off my topic, but it's more because he's an international like figure.
Just
so can
go
I ask
for
that?
it quick.
Holy.
Okay. So the thing is, I've heard a lot of people talking about the import rule, but most people I heard talking about it are from NA. And I wanted to hear from someone that understands how the business side of things work outside of NA, mostly regarding contracts, because it would change a lot in EU, Brazil, and other leagues around the world. So that was my question.
I
If you guys
think
want to talk about it, it's
my
whatever.
concern for you, sadly, is that I think this is like a whole
I
another
mean-
call.
Yeah.
So it's
but-
difficult.
I mean,
for,
on a very short thing, in terms of contracts, I don't know. I think that if there is a bigger pool, then salaries will be lower, right? Maybe that's one of the reasons.
I see. Well, my shoutouts are for Alienware. So if you need to buy Alienware gear, go to Alienware. Though in Brazil it's too expensive, so not going there anytime soon. GameFuel, can't buy it here, but helps boy Travis out. So go buy some GameFuel. Shout out to Mark. Been keeping up with you since Curse days. So
Oh my God, you're deep.
I've been watching for a while. Yes.
Actually,
Dravor-
your no offense, but your English is impressive. Actually,
I study abroad, so
Yeah.
I study in Beijing, so I think that helps as well. Thank you.
You do have like
Yours as well.
a bit. I don't. Maybe. Hopefully, this is not weird to say, but you do have like a bit of an Australian or like New Zealand accent. I was thinking. So it's like
I
this.
mean, the no offense was not for him. Was from like the Brazilian people.
No.
Guys in the chat, please, like.
Anyway.
There are a lot of Australians in China, and shout out to Raz for making LPL so much more enjoyable to watch when he was there. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I was just. It's funny that the caller was just saying that because I tuned into Kelsey Moser's stream the other day, and she was talking about, because she lived in China for a very long time. She's talking about how funny it is when you talk to a lot of people over there who can speak English, and you can tell the ones that learned it from like watching American media or whatever, and then sometimes it's like you'll talk to somebody who just has like an Australian accent or a New Zealand accent, which I thought was funny seeing that. Also, Papa Smithy in the chat trolling everyone afraid to. He says, "Hey, Night Fiend, who works for EG, please share your entire opinion on this discussion around imports." I'm very fascinated to know what's going on on the staff side and the coach side and all that stuff around who's allowed to talk about what. But I won't get into that with Andre because our next caller is here, JNT, frequent caller to the show, and also a one of the hosts of what's the podcast again?
Do you want me to name drop it? Is that allowed?
Yeah, it's fine.
Clown Fiesta Podcast.
Clown Fiesta Podcast with Blue Jay.
I saw that on the Discord. I'll look at it.
Yeah, the two of them, the Blue Jay and JNT are both frequent Hotline League callers who have started a community podcast, and people can go check it out. Where are you calling from, JNT?
Calling from San Antonio, Texas.
San Antonio, Texas. What do you want to talk about?
Basically, just how I think that Insanity is just sort of one step behind the upper echelon of LCS mid laners, those 4, I would say, are Perks, Jensen, Power of Evil, and Jizuke. You know, I think if you take a look at a lot of his games so far this split, he has some of the best laning, you know, among all mid laners in the league, and has been performing really, really well on a lot of the control mages. And even if you take a look at his games, you know, some of his losses where he's playing up against these top players, he actually performs very well in the lane, keeping even in CS. Actually, I think has the least deaths in the entire league. Has a super good KDA. I know stats, you know, aren't really the whole picture, but I think he's leveled up quite a lot from his summer 2020 split where he showed a lot of potential, but obviously had some struggles in the mid and late game, getting picked off quite a lot or inting away some games. I remember his like Oriana game against Team Liquid where he was 1v9ing and then I think like died 2 times in a row late game to kind of throw the game.
Well, Mark, do you agree with this before we let Andre talk about how
Andre
great
just said, I agree. Is that all he said?
I mean, for now, I'll wait because I can feel that you're going to disagree, so then I'll have to argue with you.
Yeah. Let's start with Mark.
All right. So, I mean, top 4 in the league. I haven't really thought about.
Well, I put him under the top 4, so I put him at 5.
Okay, so it was what'd you say? It was PoE,
Jensen, Perks, and Jizuke.
Perks.
In no particular order, but I would say those are the top 4. I'd put Insanity 5.
Yeah, Pobelter,
Damonte,
Palafox, Blazel. I mean,
Saligo.
I don't actually think it's a weird take at all when I look at it. I mean,
we have a lot of fresh mid laners.
yeah. So this is the other thing we were talking about, like with the some of the power ranking things. Like it's some are harder than others and stuff to do. Like jungle is one of the most veteran roles in the entire league, other than Iconic. Like literally everyone has played, I think, like multiple years. Whereas mid this year, you know, like between a Blaze, Saligo, Palafox, and Insanity, you have 4 new mids, and so it's like a very. No, I don't think it's a weird take at all to say that he's top of the league or top half of the league. I would say, you know, it's because closest competition. I don't know. It's close between him, Palafox, and Saligo, I guess. Right now, I mean, Pobelter hasn't played enough games, I would say, to really call out.
I mean, I think he is. Like, I think that in terms of consistency, and obviously I can speak from a point of view of what he brings to the team, then I think he fits there. I think he's a step above. I think I agree with you with the he's a step behind. But I also think that he's a step above of all the others that we're missing. So he's kind of like in the limbo to go there. And honestly, I expect him to be there at the end of this year and to be a fundamental piece on our roster rebuild, or on our organization rebuild. And to be honest, it has been great. I think that he's probably the most consistent piece in our roster. I think all the other 4 kind of already had kind of like bad games, but never him. So for me, I agree with the take. Not much more to say. I just agree.
Yeah, I think for me, what's most impressive about him is that he's beating all of the laners below him, and then playing well, not necessarily beating, but playing well in losses against the ones above him.
Well, I mean, it sounds like, generally speaking, this is like this is not the sexiest take, but I do like it because the type of thing that like, and I'm happy that you bring it up because a show like this, I think, is a place where, look, Insanity's he got some notoriety when he first came onto the scene, but I think people have been kind of quiet about talking about him because, you know, a lot of people do want to talk about Perks and all that. So I'm glad that you raise him as a conversation, because when you hear obviously Andre agreeing, but Mark saying like it's not that crazy to put him 5th in the league, I mean that's pretty good. So JNT, thanks so much for the call. Anything you want to say before we move on to the next caller?
No, just appreciate the shout out you gave us and the retweet the other week and the host last week. Appreciate that. Brought some new
try to
people
support
our
community shows,
community.
especially for people who are avid Hotline League watchers.
Yeah, we just made a Discord, so that's linked in all of our stuff now. So
Nice.
Anybody over here wants
Okay,
to
well, don't promote it that
get
much.
involved?
Okay, you
Appreciate
got
it.
the
Thank
shout
you.
out in the raid. I don't need the Discord.
I'll leave now. Don't worry.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
thanks, JT. Have a
You don't want to get the boot.
have a good one. All right. Okay. Blaine Blasphemy. Thank you for the 2 months. I already got them. Justin T. Kanoke, core user, gifted a sub to Kamikaze Platypus. Dr. Noli, Cat for Kobe, gifted a sub to Papa Smithy. And Popeye Plays Games, gifted one to For Kobe Please. Rune is here. Rune, welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Oxford, Alabama.
Oxford, Alabama. Okay, so just for context on this, I actually suggested that Rune call in because he had a topic that I thought was really interesting. I actually clipped out something he was saying on stream when I bumped into his stream the other day. But Rune, you mentioned the other day on your stream that you have not watched any LCS games this year, despite being an avid LCS fan. Do you want to kind of break down all the stuff that you mentioned before?
Yeah. So for me, I've played League ever since like before season 1, and I didn't catch up a whole lot in early LCS, but like the last couple of years were just really, really interesting. So I kind of got into it. And last year, especially, I was a really, really avid FlyQuest fan because I thought they were a great underdog story, because most times it's always been just TL, C9, and TSM. And it was just great to see this other team who nobody thought was going to do anywhere near that do all this. So they get to back-to-back finals. They go to Worlds. It wasn't great, but it wasn't near as bad as they probably were anticipated to do.
It wasn't 0-6, right?
No, it was definitely not 0-6. But then the season ends, and then the whole team just blows up. It's like they made all these big strides in branding and everything like that, and then I felt like they were maybe a player, maybe 2 away at most. I don't think there should have been 100% change in their roster, but a 40% change in their roster might have been okay, and they could have done something with that. But to blow the whole thing up to start all over was just kind of a devastating thing. And I know they're not the only team that had that problem, but they were the one that affected me the most. And it's kept me from wanting to be really invested in them this year, even though they did sign Jose Guilhoto, because he may not even be there a year from now for me to be invested in.
You're just saying it makes it hard for you to stick around.
Mate,
Yeah,
I'm gonna keep a couple of players. If you wanna be an Immortals fan, I'm gonna keep a bunch of them.
Insanity is the future. You're here at last call.
That's what I could tell you, you know?
Well, so one of the things, Rune, you said, I think as well, that I was one of the reasons I wanted to have you come on the show, because we don't usually have people who are like, I used to watch LCS, now I don't. And I think that's an interesting group of people to have on, especially when we've been talking about viewership stuff lately. But also, you just said you feel like it's really tough because even outside of FlyQuest, I think you mentioned it's just really hard whenever so much change happens in the league.
Yeah, and I understand it's not true of every team. I mean, Cloud9's kept a pretty stable roster, more or less, over the years. I mean, there's been changes here and there, but usually when they get somebody, they stay for X amount of time. But then you look at like Team Liquid, seemed like it was a big deal that Broxa came over and he was there for a year. I understand it was probably because he underperformed a little bit, but still, like, it's just hard to be excited when everything changes constantly. And I'm for change, I just think their stability is also something that I think is important, especially for some of the lesser successful, quote unquote, franchises.
Yeah.
But I also think it's like those are the harder ones to have that stability, right?
Right.
Because at some point free agency hits,
Mhm.
and then you just can't compete. In the case of FlyQuest, I think they were also, even though they, I don't know how much they invested, because I don't think that the buying out players from C9 is necessarily a cheap thing to do. But from what I've heard, they also had to go a bit down on the whole NBA thing. Mm-hmm. So then when some players end contracts, or they maybe don't have as much money as they thought they would support some salaries, then it's not like they really have an option. I'm sure that if you ask anyone on FlyQuest if they would like to keep the roster that made it to Worlds and back-to-back finals, that they would say yes. You know. It's like I think you're also caught. I agree with you that there are a lot of changes. I also think that from not the three biggest teams, it's harder to avoid, or avoiding those changes is not necessarily completely in their control. But I also think that in the case of FlyQuest, you were just caught a bit on quite unfortunate situation.
Right.
Because I don't think they really wanted to just break up the team, you know.
I think there's definitely the whole like there's the Yankees, what are you gonna do kind of thing. I don't know. You probably don't follow American baseball, so that's probably not the best reference. I
don't know who the Yankees are. I follow NBA though.
I mean, NBA is fucking weird because the players kind of just decide where they want to go.
Yeah.
And make super teams. I don't know. The point is that the rich orgs can buy the little guys out, you know, like what you're saying with FlyQuest. But, I mean, to the caller's point, Team Liquid does constantly churn out, like, you know, they're swapped their pieces out from quite a bit from when franchising started, and it was Smithy, you know, Double Lift, Ole, and all the people, and then pretty much every single piece of that has been changed out now. There's actually no remaining parts from that, and that was 2018. That was, you know, 3 years ago. So the top team turnover is just as much as.
And just because I pulled up the chart, I know we were talking about it in the pre-show stuff, but like the thing is that there was totally a ton of turnover with COVID, or because of COVID, and I saw Night Fiend in the chat, the EGGM, mention this as well. It's like, oh, it's a lot of COVID. But if you look at the chart that we have, like, we never retain more than, since 2018, we have not retained more than 50% of the league on the same team year over year. I mean, it was 18% in 2021, which is insane. But in 2020, it was 32%. Not much higher. 40% of the player base or the LCS player base got replaced in 2020 as well.
Can I ask you is there a chance that you can do this for LEC just to compare?
Yeah, I'll ask Tim to do it. I asked him if we could do it across all the different leagues, and he says it's a lot of manual work, so I didn't ask him to do it for the other regions yet. But
I'm just curious to LEC because, like, obviously in LEC you do have a lot of players that change year after year, but I think the main difference is that it's not necessarily like recycled. I think that outside of this year, that's what you had a lot of times in previous LCS iterations, where they would just change teams, but same players kind of. In Europe, it's different. So then it's harder for you to like find a franchise, or like, let's say, like kind of a franchise player for each team, you know?
Yeah. Because we definitely recycled our players a lot, but even then, like, we're still replacing, you know, a third of them or throwing out a third of them in 2019. 40% of them in 2020. So like I get that a lot of people, and I'm not saying they were wrong, there was like a lot of players that just kept underperforming and sat around on teams for a long time, but goddamn, we just throw out so many players every year and swap them around so much.
I'm gonna say
but you're not swapping them for rookies, right? Until this year you were swapping them for either other imports or, well, basically other imports.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so that's exactly what I was gonna say, is I bet the 30% turnover rate is actually pretty close to what other leagues see. There's a period of time when I was talking about how many rookies get into the NA LCS proportional to server base size, and like the amount of turnover in LEC or LCK and LEC, I couldn't do LPL because it was too hard to do. Because their teams were expanding. They went from like 12 to 18 teams or some bullshit. But like the turnover rate was like relatively consistent across all the regions. But I think to your point, Andre, about like the franchise player, like you have the foundational pillars of here's Reckless on Fnatic, here's Perks on G2, and there was more of that kind of through line as the pieces shifted around. Whereas in NA, other than Bjergsen, you have none of that. Like, all right, here's Jensen, he's now over here, Niski's here, Niski's gone. Double Lift has played for 6 teams at that point, or whatever it was, you know, something insane. So I think there hasn't been many. Like, you can latch onto a player, but I still think there's something about the rivalry of Peter versus this guy, whereas like Reckless versus G2 was like every year you kind of had that.
But to take on that, look, in EU, you know that every time there is G2 versus Fnatic, Reckless left Fnatic, right? But the rivalry between G2 and Fnatic still exists.
Yeah.
And the organizations treat themselves as rivals. Even in scrims, like, so these are the biggest two orgs in EU. Whenever one of them is fucking up and needs to like be some kind of like, let's say, there was one situation a couple of years ago where one of these two teams got blocked from scrims because the other team pushed for it in EU. And this is part of the rivalry in a way where you hold the other part accountable when you are the only one that can hold them accountable. In NA, that never happens. Like, honestly, I came here and I don't feel any kind of like, why would I feel that TL versus TSM is a rivalry? It doesn't feel like one. Why is TSM versus C9 a rivalry?
Yeah, we have no.
Maybe
rivalry.
I'm just wrong, but it just doesn't exist.
It doesn't. No, not anymore. It used to be.
That's something, as like a soccer fan, that's something that actually gets me more emotional, attached to the game, and makes me actually be a fan of the team. Is like when those games come on that rivalry, I'm like super stoked, and I'm going on social media and just flame the other team. And that makes me feel good. And if my team wins against a rival, I feel really good. And if my team loses against a rival, I feel like shit. And that, honestly, I feel like that happens on the Fnatic fans and the G2 fans, which means that once they bring all that atmosphere to social media, then Rogue fans won't be part of it, and in their heads it's kind of like a rivalry and whatnot, and it's just easier to be attached. But in NA, you just don't have any kind of rivalry. So that's why I also think it's hard. That's why I think it's harder for you to support a team. Going to the topic of our caller, I think it's harder for you to support a team because no matter what team you support, there's not really a reason for you to be attached. And the main reason that EU has, especially for this main two, to be attached to a team is the fact that you have a rival that you can shit on or be shit on by after you play versus them.
What do you think, Rune? Do you want to shit on people or be shit on?
Well, I just think we struggle as a region as just even building player or team narratives that would build a rivalry, especially at this point with turnover being what it is. Like you said, it's just hard to be invested that way. I don't think that's true in other sports. I mean, I understand esports is a little different and it's way newer, but
I mean, it's hard because it's like we don't even have any player rivalries in the league. You know, it's like I wish there was some reason to care when Fudge and Impact went head to head or something. I don't know how that stuff really is born. Maybe you just need to, like, over the course of their careers, they need to start.
Honest opinion, Travis.
What's that?
Usually it's built by the broadcast. Or a lot of times it's built by the broadcast, or at least the broadcast helps building it. And I feel like the amount of exposure that broadcast gives to players, and it might be down to COVID, you know, but I think it's very, very underwhelming compared to what EU does. Like, there's no, when you go onto like a media day in EU, the guy that asks the questions, it's literally like he wants to trash talk. Like, we go into the media day of LEC, and the guy that's asking the questions literally goes to Upset and says, Guilhoto yesterday talked shit about you. He said that you're a choker and that you'll never beat him. Do you want to answer to this? This is like his question, you know? And then, of course, it's like, at some point, one of them will have a rivalry that goes into the broadcast. That's why, and sometimes pro players do complain about this, like, that's why you have them cutting off stuff, and maybe that's not what they meant, but when the guy that asked the questions put it this way, then of course you're going to be a bit more salty on your answer. And then you start building some kind of like rivalries. And it doesn't matter if it's actually a rivalry, as long as it seems a rivalry to the fans, right? That's all it matters. They can be friends and whatnot, but for the fans, they are just like, they're going to hate each other. I think the Attila Upset one is the most recent that comes to memory that was purely built on broadcast. Upset never saw Attila as a rival, but out of the broadcast narrative, then you have when Attila kills Upset, just him telling him to shut up and saying some bad words in Portuguese. And that goes over and over, and it causes some excitement, you know?
I just want to once more point out that I offered Riot free of charge my interview with Jensen, where he said Perks is not actually that great or that much. He can't learn much from Perks, and that he thought Cloud9 would perhaps fall down, be worse. That would have been a great moment. Mark Z, once more it falls on you to defend the entire LCS broadcast. You don't
Well,
have to.
Travis, the problem with pushing player narratives is it gives me less time for me. So I'm vehemently opposed to anything that's actually gonna, build our players up for interesting storylines, because I just love talking myself.
I appreciate Mark for every. I just want to point out to everyone that Mark does an amazing job. He's put in an impossible position constantly on the show of both representing Riot in some ways in the LCS, and in other ways having to be critical of them. And in these moments, he still finds ways to succeed.
Let me actually be clear, Mark. When I mean broadcast, I don't mean the people that are involved, or not like the people that are on air. It's not the on-air talent. Yeah, when I talk about broadcast, okay. Because
I never take it like when people criticize broadcast, I don't try and insert and assume they're talking about me. If people want to say that I'm not doing a great job,
then I'll say Mark. Then I'll say your name.
Like I don't know what it was, like a last split. Jensen thought that we were overrating Bjergsen or something, and I always encourage people to use the broadcast as part of the narrative. Like, if you think I'm a fucking idiot for the closer thing, I would encourage that conversation, because great, now we're talking about something interesting. Maybe closer hates my ass now. Like, I don't care. I don't want it to be about me specifically, by the way. I'm just saying that, like, I'm happy that stuff
Mark
happens.
Z versus the LCS players is the number one rivalry.
I'm not saying things to stir up drama either. Like, those are my opinions. But, like, to that point, like, I would rather have people saying what they really think than dancing around it. And whether that's, on the broadcast and interviews to get spliced and cut together to push that kind of stuff is a good point. Like, can we get more out of the players, whether by asking leading questions, hamming these things up more? I would love that. I would love to have more of that kind of stuff. I'm 100% on board.
I mean, I guess it's hard with COVID, right?
I think you lose a lot of the the will. I mean,
I don't think they were great at this before.
I mean, it's the thing. What I was gonna say is, I know it's hard with COVID, but I also feel like maybe we can push a bit more, even though there's COVID, instead of just like COVID, and then we just stop,
Yeah, and I
For
think.
sure, like,
go ahead, Mark.
When people were criticizing the broadcast, I mean, you weren't here. I don't know if you were following NA quite as much last summer, but like, people fucking hated the broadcast, and I think a lot of the times, like, it's COVID is, an excuse, because it is more difficult, but that doesn't mean you can't, like, things aren't going to be
and
good.
it's also not going to get magically solved too, because I do think the broadcast will feel way better when we're in the studio, but do I think suddenly we'll feel like these players have rivalries, and like we'll suddenly feel like, wow, everything is so much more entertaining? Like, it will definitely elevate things to a higher level. I just I hope people recognize that not everything is, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying, Mark, but just broadly speaking, I hope people don't feel like that's going to fix it all.
For example, something, I mean, just a random thought, right? I remember that when it was the entry video for the LCS, that Damonte was the one talking about Bjergsen retired and open a new spot for King of Mid Lane, whatnot, right? But in my opinion, and maybe I'm just biased, but it would just be more interesting to start building kind of like a narrative of all this, or these three new mid laners coming into the league, and new. I mean, Insanity is not really new, but Palafox, Soligo, and I would include Insanity in a way, where they actually just like talk about each other and speak on, literally they actually speak of who would they think it's going to be the next mid laner, and why won't the other two be? I mean, that's just one of the ways that you can start something.
Andre, can I ask you can I ask you a question? Do you think that LEC would have been absolutely silent around like the Reggie tweet to Vulcan and kind of all the drama that happened there?
No, I think it would appear on one of the shock segment.
Because that's actually, I was just thinking about that. I think in traditional sports, it would have been talked about. Like, you would have had people saying like, "Oh yeah, this crazy thing happened." Maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't watch.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think it's just one of those situations where there's a lot of vested interest in the broadcast, the league, and everything is so tightly mixed together. Like, ESPN is not the NFL, so when ESPN can report on whatever they want in the NFL because it's
a different broadcast, yeah.
Right. Whereas NFL Network isn't going to talk about the NFL in a negative light, whereas other orgs can.
Yeah, I guess I just like that was probably the most.
Were you talking about like the huge text or the imports tweet?
I think he means the what he replied to Vulcan with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think that knowing a bit of LEC, either that or the imports tweet will be pulled off after the Dignitas loss, and it would be mocked about. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think, there's a lot of people that have been saying recently that LCS feels fairly sanitized, and I think that was a pretty good example where there was an opportunity there for the broadcast for league ops who perhaps is uncomfortable about the situation, has to find Reggie, et cetera, to be like, oh, this sucks, and broadcast to be like, hey, we're the broadcast. Let's entertain. Like, this is what we're here to talk about. You guys gotta move on instead of just being completely silent, pretending it didn't happen, et cetera, et cetera. I appreciate that the dive talked about it, but I do wonder if perhaps there was a missed opportunity.
That's something else. On the dive, I think the dive should always have the players guest every episode.
I admit I don't watch Euphoria. Do they do it every episode?
Yeah, every episode. Every episode there is like a player, coach. I think that player is way more interesting. Just have him there. And like discuss the things with a perspective of someone while still giving him a platform for people to follow. I just think it's good.
If any players would like to appear on Hotline League, feel free to reach out to me. We would love to have you.
Yeah, I like having really good conversations, and it's better when there's another guest on that can bounce. Like the conversation about what should 100 Thieves do for their playstyle with like the Damonte thing. Like that's way better that Andre had thoughts than like just me saying stupid shit.
Rune.
Or imagine that you actually have someone, a mid laner, to discuss that topic, and he actually plays versus Damonte. It's even more, I feel like.
Rune, thank you so much for the call. I really do appreciate it, and thanks for, I'm sure, staying up fairly late at my request. So is there anything you want to say before I let you free?
Honestly, just kind of thanks for kind of shining a light on this. Like, I really didn't realize it was a big of an issue until you brought it up to me. So I was just kind of glad to have the little platform, I guess.
What can we all do to get you to watch the show or watch LCS?
Make a rivalry for me. That'll be fun to follow.
Okay, well, we'll get working on that. Thanks so much.
Guilhoto, who's the worst team? Who's the most overrated team in the league?
Overrated?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say because a lot of teams are overrated in the league. So which one is the most?
He's
overrated?
like, who isn't overrated? This whole league is a joke.
I think
EG.
Dignitas is overrated, but that's kind of weird because we lost 2 times against them, but we kind of gave them like freebies. I think they're overrated now. They weren't at the start,
Right.
I think FlyQuest were overrated at the start, but not now. Now everyone kind of like says they suck.
Right,
and 100 Thieves is for sure overrated. Like 100 Thieves, I think it's overrated. Or at least if people put them on the top 3, I don't think they'll be top 3.
Caller, Immortals, head coach, thinks 100 Thieves and Dignitas are actually dog shit. That's what I'd say on broadcast. I'd take what you said there and amp it up a little bit and be like,
Dude,
not to put words in Andre's mouth.
You guys hear about what happened? The Immortals head coach shit on 100 Thieves. Actually, we can't. It's a pale comparison to what's happening in Call of Duty with I don't know if anybody saw that Hastro 100T drama where
But honestly, like if you want to say
Courage was
that about
saying his
100
org
Thieves, I'm
was a
fine.
joke.
I'm like, I'm always down to go to war versus Mr. Papa Smithy.
Papa Smithy. Here's the thing.
War,
There's several.
like,
There are
it's
several
always free.
Hotline
Like
League.
when he came to Europe, like he got spanked so hard. His team got like so destroyed. It was crazy. And now it will happen the same. I lost to you once, Papa. It won't happen again. Next time we play versus you, like you better be ready. Insanity is just gonna be Flame Horizon Damonte every day.
There you go. It's happening right now.
Yeah.
Papa Smithy. People all want Papa Smithy to come on the show. Papa Smithy is one of the Hotline League Twitch chat warriors who love to sit in the chat and like critique everything we're saying and disagree, but then never come on the show. To be clear,
Maybe coach rivalries are what we need.
The coach rivalries, exactly. Rune, thank you so much for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks so much.
All right, we're going to take a quick break really quickly. Talk about GameFuel, our sponsor for the show, our second sponsor. Mark and I have been drinking a ton of these. I'm actually getting to hook up some friends in the scene with GameFuel, which I really appreciate them letting me do. It was at my request. I said, hey, can I throw some of this around? Go over to GameFuel.com if you can, and you're in the U.S. Unfortunately, it's not available outside the U.S., but hopefully eventually. Even if you're outside the U.S., just tweet them. Be like, I'd love to try it sometime. I don't know if that's going to actually do anything, but it does help me, especially if you cite me. Go check them out. Make an account and sign up and try it. And make sure you sign up for the Victory Pass, which you can do on their site. It's a battle pass specifically for GameFuel. You get to unlock all sorts of cool stuff throughout the year. And it also gets you free shipping if you do it before the 16th of March. So go do that. There's all sorts of different awards that you can get through this. And use code TRAVIS for 5% off your order. I know some of you are in specific areas of the U.S. where they're not able to deliver off of the GameFuel website. If you do end up having that experience, and I need to make this in the YouTube description because I haven't done it yet, but if you do !GameFuel in the chat right now, which I just did, you'll be able to not only see the code, but you can also order it off Amazon using that link. And if you use it off that link, it's actually helpful because it allows me to track it. And then I can report it back to GameFuel and say, hey, listen, even the people who can't get it off your site, which obviously is what we all prefer, look, they're still ordering it through Amazon. So thank you so much to GameFuel for sponsoring the show. Really appreciate it. It's been great to see so many people tweeting about trying the different flavors and ordering different cases and all that stuff since they came on and sponsored the show. But we love GameFuel so much for that. And I've been drinking a ton of this stuff. And I know Mark is too, because I gave Mark like several cases, and he hit me up the other day and was like, I'm running low. So I know he's going through it as well.
GameFuel a day keeps the doctor away.
That is not medical advice, and we are not. Mark is just using that as a phrase. We are not saying that's any kind of. It's not exactly. Anyway, thank you so much, GameFuel, for sponsoring the show. Off to our last caller. We go. Anti-TP gifted a sub to Peaceful85. Skajosh, D9TV. Popeye Plays Games gifted a sub to Emily. Koj2412. Thank you, everybody, for the subs. Josh 8far is here. Josh, where are you calling from?
Hey, calling from Fairfax, Virginia right now. Currently on campus, doing some school stuff here.
Nice.
Holy.
Well, isn't it kind of late to be on campus in Virginia?
Well, I'm staying here on campus.
Oh, you mean you're like in a dorm?
Yeah, in a
Okay.
COVID hotel right now, actually.
Oh,
Hopefully that's not
interesting. Okay.
oversharing. Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, what do you want to talk about on the show?
I just want to make the take that I believe the analyst desk is overhyping Team Liquid, and currently right now they're sitting 7-5 as the tied for fourth team with, apologies, let me look, Dignitas and Evil Geniuses. And I believe, although we did just speak about the overrated teams that we believe, I believe Team Liquid fits this overrated narrative because despite them pub stomping lock-in, I would say at least, even though they did have that last final game where they almost got reverse swept, they did start with their main roster and calling back to the turnover rates that you guys were just talking about. Whereas most teams averaged keeping less than one player with 18% to their team from the last split, Team Liquid kept 3 players and brought on 2 mainstay or like big name players from the LCS. And unfortunately, Team Liquid is still suffering some of the same issues that the bottom tier teams are currently suffering, like making weird coin flip barons in their most recent game versus TSM. They have some like interesting draft issues. Their Alfari's having times in the game where he's getting caught, which I think is showing not as much. He's been hyped up a lot, and I definitely think he deserves that. But he is also finding himself getting caught. They focused a lot towards his lane in the game versus Impact, where Impact had that comeback game, and he didn't show quite as well after that, because even though he took the Ignite and they focused a lot towards Impact, Impact obviously in that game came back, and I think he deserved MVP. I'm not sure if he got MVP for that game. But yeah, I think
No one knows. MVP is not shown on broadcast.
I think I would compare Team Liquid to 2019 Clutch Gaming, where right now, whereas they do have one win versus C9 and Clutch Gaming in 2019, famously was losing to all the teams above them and beating all the teams below them. I really think that Team Liquid is, despite that, again, win versus C9, sort of like Clutch Gaming of 2019. That's my take.
Team Liquid is overrated, and it's the analyst desk's fault for rating them so high. And they're under-delivering on what should be an easy split for them when they were able to maintain most of their roster and bring in two great players. Or bring in, two great players in top and jungle. I mean, it's a very good, I think, take.
No, it was elaborated.
Yeah.
It has merit.
I kind of buy
it. Honestly, I can't say for sure because
I just realized Mark is disconnected.
Know... Oh, he disconnected?
Yeah, he's just been. I thought that but on Skype his camera's gone. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I'm not sure how much they overhype TL or how much they are hyping TL. I still think that they are currently playing at the top 2 level. So it's hard for me to say. They do make those mistakes that you were talking about and whatnot, but it's not like the rest of the league is playing at a very high level as well. So I think they can kind of get away with it, and they are at the moment playing top 2, top 3 level. So I mean, I'm not sure how much they are hyping TL. If they are putting them as like the clear favorites to win and way better than C9 for sure, then I think they're overhyping. If they are not doing that, then I think it's just like they're not necessarily overhyping them.
I don't think we've said that they're probably second favorites still to win. I think everyone has C9 number 1. I missed most of this conversation because I don't know what happened. My 5G died. I had to swap to my 2G, and seems okay now. I think Team Liquid's. I don't know. I feel like a lot of their players are individually underperforming, and not all at the same time. But like, Alfari had a couple games where he didn't play quite as well as he did in Lock In. Tactical has had a couple of those. Jensen's had a couple of those, and I think that they will get back to the level that they showed in Lock-In, or at least close to it. I don't think they're going to go back to solo killing every bot lane 2v2 again like that. But I think that I forget which player. There was an interview that came out today. I think it was the C9 player that said that he thinks that they're still the second best team in the league.
Yeah, like, can I ask you guys something? I feel like when people talk about, 100 Thieves, I think lost a little bit over the last couple of days in terms of their respect, but a lot of people are like, oh man, the best teams are Cloud9, 100T, and Team Liquid. And then I don't ever hear anybody say TSM. And I would say
TSM over 100 Thieves. I still think TSM has like games of the first 2 weeks of TSM. For example, the game versus Dignitas, where I don't know what really happened there, but I just feel like on the games that they win, they seem way cleaner. And for me, that shows that there was definitely big progress being made. And it was just a matter of actually getting those kind of things way more consistently. But I think that it's like, I don't know, they are becoming a good team, I feel like.
Yeah, we recorded the dive earlier today. Minor spoilers. I think I said TSM was top 3 during that as well.
Okay,
Like,
so maybe it's turning around, but for a while, like that was what was confusing to me, is I kept seeing TSM win, and it felt like people were not crediting them with those wins. But Mark, you think you guys have been down on Team Liquid enough, contrary to what the caller says, because he feels like it's the analyst desk.
I mean, I'm not on all the analyst desks, so I'm not sure if someone was like, Team Liquid's the best team ever. I don't know if Spawn was on there or something, hyping them up. But I think given what they did in the lock-in tournament, the quality of the players and all that stuff, they're probably still second in line to try and get a shot. I think, they're only 1 game out of second place, I believe. So, yeah. I mean, because Cloud9 looks like the clear best favorite right now, so.
Yeah.
I think a lot of my point comes from the fact that so many people do regard them as a second-tier team, despite having losses to TSM twice now, which that's completing the round robin versus TSM. So do you not put TSM above Team Liquid if then TSM has now beaten them twice? And obviously they have a win versus C9, which does bump their resume a lot. But they've also lost to EG and 100 Thieves as well, which are currently above them, I believe, or tied.
Let me ask you a question. If Immortals won versus TL this weekend, would you say Immortals is better than TL?
I think you can certainly have teams that beat other people or abuse other people's weaknesses better than other teams do. So if Immortals has consistently, kind of like Golden Guardians used to kind of beat up on Team Liquid in the past, and it was kind of always a good game despite there being a huge disparity in skill. I think if Immortals had beaten them again and shown that they can exploit Team Liquid's weaknesses, then whereas the Circle of Sucks that I created showed that there was a lot of parity, I definitely think that then maybe you can say that Immortals is better at exploiting Team Liquid's weaknesses, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't.
But then you should make the same argument for TSM TL, right?
Sure, and that's what I was just saying. Is I believe Team Liquid Oh, so you're saying that the overall
I'm saying
head-to-head.
that the fact that you're going 2-0 versus a team doesn't necessarily mean that that team is just better. Because if we go that way, then now if TL wins against C9, then TSM is better than TL, but TL is better than C9, and C9 is better than TSM. And where do we go?
No, you make a good point. I agree
Circle
with
of
that.
Suck.
So what I think is the reason why I think that they are still a top 2, even though they dropped those games, is that the ways that they win seem more replicable than, for example, the ways that we win, or that the ways that Dignitas wins, or that the ways that EG wins, or that the ways that 100 Thieves win. So I feel like it's easier for them to reach to a consistent state where they can beat most of the teams in the league, except C9, where I think that C9 is just a step above them. So that's where I think that they are in second place right now.
I think,
and I would argue with TSM.
And though I was going to chime on there as well, is like, I don't even know if I would say I would put Team Liquid second right now, but when you're talking about when best of 5s roll around, which teams are going to be legitimate threats to win this split, I think that's where a lot of the TL faith still exists. Whereas, like, if you want to argue right now that TSM's better than them, you can make that argument maybe. Like, TSM, when they're playing their, like, scaling mage, weak side top, roaming support, and, comboing with Spica, like, they look pretty good. Like, maybe they are better than TL right now while tactical is not playing well. But when we often talk about who's going to win the split, we're not talking about right now. We're talking about best of 5s a month out from now still. Or a little bit less than a month now. But
so how do you reckon Team Liquid will stand up if they do end up 6th place, where they're kind of slotted into right now with the 3-way tie for 4th, if they have to first round play C9.
I just don't think they'll be that place. That's why.
Okay.
I don't believe that they'll be 6th place. Because, I mean, Dignitas just lost to CLG, you know? That doesn't mean that CLG is not a better team than Dignitas, but it means, for me at least, that the likelihood of Dignitas dropping out of that 3-way tie, it's bigger than TL dropping out of that 3-way tie, you know? So I don't think that they'll be that low. Plus, you can use the argument that, yes, there is a 3-way tie for the 6th place, but they're also one game away for the 3rd place. Right? Am I wrong? No.
No.
They are one game away,
actually,
right?
They're 2 games out from 7th.
Second.
Yeah, they're 1 game out from 2nd.
Yeah, I think there's a clear gap between top 6 and well, just in standings right now, because there's a lot more. Or there's 2 games, as you said, in between 4th or 6th and 7th.
Hey, Josh, thank you so much for the call. Unfortunately, we are out of time for this show. Very out of time for this show. Is there anything you want to say before we close out the show?
Actually, I'd like to thank you last week for mentioning the Circle of Suck. That was something that I did bring over from traditional sports, and I thought it was very funny that you.
Oh, you're the Circle of Suck guy.
Yeah, it was
put it on a business card.
Yeah, I'd like to distance myself from that if that's possible.
Nope, you're the Circle of Suck guy. Congratulations, Circle of Suck guy.
I would like to shout out GameFuel as well, because I definitely think after I tried it last week or 2 weeks ago, I went around and I tried a couple of other energy drinks, and I definitely thought GameFuel was the best of the energy drinks that I tried. And I'm looking to buy some more, but currently I'm in lockdown. So once I'm out of that, I am absolutely going to get some GameFuel. And I'm kind of jealous that you guys both have some on hand right now.
Don't forget to use the code Travis.
Absolutely.
All right, Andre is going to be is considered one of my best guests in a while, I think.
Andre's coming back next week to just do the show.
Josh, really quickly, which flavor did you try?
Oh, I had both of the. It was like a raspberry, or like a lemonade.
The zero sugar ones?
Zero sugar, yeah. I had both of the zero sugar ones.
Yeah.
And those were really good. And then since then, I've tried some really crappy flavors from other brands. But I need caffeine, and it was all that they had at the gas station near me. So.
Yeah. 0 watermelon shock and 0 raspberry lemonade.
That's it. And they were some bangers.
Thank you, Josh. Your shout out has been a bang. Actually, oh my God, I just realized we can do something incredible for you. Guess what? You are the GameFuel victory caller of the night. Congratulations, Josh. We're gonna send you some. Shoot me your. Just message me on Discord. We're gonna hook you up with a case of GameFuel. I don't know if you can get it delivered at a hotel, but we're gonna try to figure out how to get it to you. That's not my job. Somebody else has to do that.
I really appreciate that. That's very cool.
Yeah. Thank you to GameFuel for allowing us to do that. Shoot me a message on Discord in a bit. Thank you so much for the call, and we will catch you next time.
Yeah, thank you guys for the Discord. See you guys.
Yep, have a good one. All right, that is our show, and Andre's camera is back just in time for us to close out. Mark, what do you got for us? Shout-outs, plugs, go.
I don't know. I feel very tired. I felt exceptionally tired this last week. I'm going to try and unwind the next 2 days.
Well, Mark, I'm glad
we'll see
that GameFuel was able to keep you awake for this show, because I'm sure you'd be asleep otherwise.
True.
Jesus. Okay, I try so hard. Andre, what do you got to shout out for us tonight? What do you got for us to plug?
Not just thank you for the invite. It was an absolute pleasure. And not just shout out to my team, my players that were there, that are gonna get a very interesting tomorrow, I would say.
Revenge and Insanity trolling on the Twitch chat all night for people who didn't see.
Out of 1-2, it's gonna be an interesting tomorrow. But no, just thank you for everyone in the chat as well. And I mean, it's always, for me, it's always very. I get very, let's say, emotional in a way when talking about this kind of topics. But I don't want anyone to take it like personally or anything. And if I ever sounded any kind of like insulting or anything, I'll just apologize in advance for that.
What about when you were shitting on 100T? That wasn't
that
real.
I won't apologize.
Okay, good.
I didn't.
That I won't apologize.
Yeah, I didn't feel like that at all. I think if one of us sounded salty at any point, it's probably me when I was joking about like the stats thing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I feel you, dude. I definitely when you start arguing about stuff, blood pressures rise, voices raise, and next thing you know, you're like, what? What are you talking about? I'm there.
No, but I think that's. I mean, honestly, like that also happens when you're coaching a team, like because I've once I talked with Revenge and Insanity once about this, where they are saying everyone is like so respectful and whatnot. And one time I yelled at practice, you know, and after that I talked to them, and they were like, I was just. It was not the yelling that surprised me. It was just the fact that after that everything came back to normal. But what came out of that was probably one of the best conclusions we had so far during this split of practice. So at least I really think that if you're able to take good conclusions out of that instead of just being too careful of not hurting your fifis, at least in a team environment, then you just improve, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the best meme as well. Wait, I don't even know the meme. What's the meme about?
You become a meme behind Andre.
Not,
Insanity in the Twitch chat says, and
meme.
the best meme, by the way, for people listening to the show later on. I just want to make it clear, if anybody ever yells at me, my fifis will be hurt. And I don't want anyone to yell at me. But I'm glad that Andre is able to get good results out of his players by doing that.
No, I did it once. It's not whatever.
I'm glad that Andre, who screams at people
what I mean is that there is a mentality that if you say what's in your mind, that the team will just implode, you know?
Yeah. Well, I watched Breaking Point, and I think that team had a lot of people saying what was on their mind, and it definitely imploded. So
I mean, I think especially for coaching. I mean, I watch a lot of like documentaries and stuff about coaching and whatnot, and like, fucking, you don't follow American football, but there's this coach Bill Belichick, and like, they always talk about shifting moods, and like when people are too lax, finding ways to get them energized, and when people are like on edge, finding ways to chill them out. You know, like I don't think you can yell. I think people need to let out their emotions if they're fucking pissed. You know. Better than sitting on them often.
Very good.
I mean, the fact I feel like in team environments, at least, one of the main difference between EU and NA is that players are more willing to argue and understand that argument is not personal. While in NA, I feel like if two players argue, the next day both are messaging the head coach that they don't want to play with that player anymore, and one of them will end up going. You know.
I can't wait to see who wins in your heart, Insanity or Revenge. Who makes a better case to you to stay on the team?
Actually, maybe I should just actually be like Congress, you know, just allow them to fund me. No, allow
you
them
want
to like
lobbyists?
fund me and shit, and then I'll make my decision.
It's just a bribe.
Based on that.
I see. Well, it's hit that part of the night where we're talking about American politics with somebody from outside of the country. So it's time to wrap up the show. Thank you so much, Andre, for coming on. It was a great show having you on. I really enjoyed it. We're definitely going to hit you up and bother you to come on again.
Yeah, this is great.
Thanks to everyone. This is a mega episode, I guess, with the pre-show. So thanks to Raz for coming on the show, even though just moments ago on Skype he said, "Fuck you, Travis," and left our group chat. And thanks to our sponsors. We've got some great content hitting this week, including an interview with the host for FlyQuest's Spanish language stream, and a run it about who is the actual second best team in the league, and Mark is falling asleep, so we got to go. Oh, and apparently a Darshan interview to talk about the Players Association stuff on the import rules. So I'm looking forward to that. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. This has been Hotline League, episode 162, I think. Yeah, 162. All right.